Good evening and welcome to the Plymouth Select Board on Tuesday, December 30th, 2025. Pursuant to Chapter 30A, Section 20, pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency and signed into law on March 28th, 2025. This meeting will be conducted via remote means and in person. Members of the board are joining us here all in person. Members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by tuning into the local scene, government cable access channels Comcast 9 and Verizon 47, and watch the meeting as it's aired live, or they may watch the meeting live on the local scene website. Any members of the public who wish to participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner: coming in person at the Great Hall at Plymouth Town Hall, 26 Court Street in Plymouth, Mass., or remotely using the Zoom link, which is published on the agenda and posted on the town's website. Our first item is an executive session. The Select Board will hold an executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Clause 3, to discuss the strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares. I do so declare for the matter of UA et al. Versus the town of Plymouth et al. Is there a motion to enter executive session?
So moved.
Ms. Iaquinto makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Canty seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Quintal?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
And myself, yes. The board is going to enter executive session and return at approximately 6 p.m. The board has returned from their executive session to start our open session. Pursuant to Massachusetts General Law 30A, Section 20, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of the Plymouth Select Board after first notifying the chair, subject to the reasonable requirements of the chair so as not to interfere with the conduct of the meeting. At the beginning of each meeting, the chair will inform attendees of any such recordings. I have been informed by a representative from WATD that they will be recording this meeting tonight, in addition to the local scene, which is recording each of our meetings. Please join the board in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on our agenda tonight are our licenses. We have a number of them listed on the agenda. Common victualler amendment, a one-day wine and malt license, an amplified music permit, a change of DBA for liquor, and a request for closing for liquor. Pleasure of the board.
Make
Move
a
as
motion to
presented.
approve.
Mr. Quintal moves them as a group. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Canty seconds. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Quintal?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
And myself, yes. They are passed unanimously. We also have 4 administrative notes. Pleasure of the board.
Move as listed.
Mr. Quintal moves them as a group. A second.
Second.
Mr. Canty seconds. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the roll. Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Mr. Quintal?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
And myself, yes. I'll now open the floor to public comment. I believe Mr. Blitzer informed me that he had a public comment.
Former select board member, and a big fan of Bobby Clark. I was driving this morning and I heard the town manager in his report to WATD said that they were honoring Bobby for 25 years of service. And I just want to say a few words to show my respect. Bobby Clark, I wrote a few things down. Bobby Clark reported the facts in a story. It did not try and sensationalize those stories. She once told me, she said, "Charlie, I report the stories. I don't make the stories. And I'll never forget that quote. She said it to me, I never forgot that. The word trust comes to mind when I think of Bobby Clark. You could do an interview with her, and you never had to worry about being misquoted. I respect the media. They are very important to our community. They get the information out to our citizens. I just wish they all had the same integrity and ethics as Bobby Clark. I saw firsthand, years ago, a candidate that was demoralized after an election. An election he won, but his fellow board member lost. And I saw the kindness that Bobby showed that candidate when she interviewed him, and I'll never forget that. So, Bobby, I just want to congratulate on your retirement, and I know you're not going anywhere. You'll still be around Plymouth, and I'm sure we'll see you around town, and probably, if there's something interesting, you'll be there. But thank you for everything you've done for me and for the citizens of Plymouth. Thank you.
Right.
Hi, I'm Michael Hertz, 18 Penny Lane, Precinct 14, town meeting member. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Select Board. I'd like to ask a policy-level question regarding road acceptance in Plymouth. This is not about any specific roadway or pending petition, but about the general approach the town is considering in a new roads acceptance policy. As part of the potentially proposed road acceptance process, it may be expected that property owners on unaccepted roads will pay the full or partial cost of bringing those ways up to current town standards and fully rehabilitated before they may be considered for acceptance or as a condition of road acceptance. And that includes all the legal and engineering costs as well. My question is whether the Select Board believes that expectation is fair and equitable as a matter of policy, given that those same property owners pay the full municipal real estate tax rate based on comparable assessments and do not receive substantially the same municipal services as residents on accepted roads. I'm asking whether, in the board's view, requiring a private funding of public infrastructure as a condition of acceptance aligns with principles of uniform and proportional taxation, or whether the board considers that expectation to be an appropriate distinction within Plymouth's overall road acceptance framework.
Thank you for your comment. We don't typically respond to public comments. Other public comments? Is there anyone online? Mr. Savage, you have been added to the meeting. If you could unmute yourself and then give your comment. We can't hear you, although you appear to be unmuted. Still can't hear you. Are there other folks online while Mr. Savage works out his technical difficulty? Well, unfortunately, Mr. Savage, we cannot hear you. So we're gonna have to move on. Feel free to submit your comments to the board. Oh, did you? Nope. You could feel free to submit your comments to the board at selectmen@plymouth-ma.gov or attend one of our future meetings as well. Any other public comments? All right. Well, at this time, we'll move on to our agenda items. The first is a proclamation for Roberta Bobby Clark. I'm going to invite Casey Kennedy up to the podium, and she's going to present the proclamation, which the board will then vote on. While Casey's coming up to the podium, I'd just like to say Bobby, it's been an honor to work with you during my time in Plymouth government. We started to get to know each other during the charter review process, and I would agree with Mr. Bletzer. You've always been a very fair and balanced reporter. We're definitely going to miss you around here. So thank you for being a friend to me, and most importantly, for being a friend to the residents in Plymouth. And with that, I'll turn things over to Ms. Kennedy.
Great. Thank you, Select Board and Chair. I'm honored to be able to present this to Bobby Clark. When I first started a year and a half ago, she was the first media to reach out to me and, welcome me with open arms, and has been, knowledgeable, kind, professional, and, a mentor for the last year and a half. So I'm going to be sad to see you go, but excited for your new venture. So with that said, whereas Roberta Bobby Clark has served the residents and community of Plymouth through her commitment as the Plymouth correspondent for WATD Radio since December 2000, providing thoughtful and dedicated coverage of local news and community affairs. And whereas Bobby Clark graduated from Emerson College in 1999 with a degree in writing, publishing, and literature, establishing a strong foundation for her career in journalism. And whereas Bobby Clark began her professional career in Chicago at Wind Radio, where she produced newsmaker segments for the Morning Drive news block and a daily live news and talk variety show, advancing to Chicago's NBC affiliate, WMAQ-TV, where she produced 5 Emmy award-winning series. And whereas Bobby Clark brought her talent to Boston, producing an Emmy-nominated documentary, further demonstrating her excellence in broadcast journalism. And whereas Bobby Clark joined WATD as a welcome addition to the station's news team, covering news for the town of Plymouth, one of the largest and most significant communities in the station's service area. And whereas throughout her more than 2 decades as WATD's Plymouth correspondent, Bobby Clark reported on many of the town's most significant developments, including the Pine Hills, the new town hall, and the Town Brook Restoration Project, helping residents stay informed and engaged with their community. And whereas Bobby Clark's work has fostered transparency, civic engagement, and a strong relationship between the town of Plymouth and the residents it serves, and whereas the town of Plymouth has greatly valued its working with Bobby Clark and appreciated her dedication to telling the stories of Plymouth with care and respect. Therefore, be it further proclaimed that the town of Plymouth hereby extends its sincerest gratitude to Roberta Bobby Clark for her service to the community and congratulates her on her retirement, wishing her continued happiness, good health, and fulfillment in all her future endeavors as she begins this next chapter. Presented this 30th day of December 2025 by the Plymouth Select Board. Congratulations, Bobby.
You know, I'm supposed to be really good with words, but I have no words to thank you for this great honor. It's so heartening to have done your best and have people notice it. Oh, Dick, Dick,
Bring it in.
Oh, this is such an honor to have all of you here. You, Cutie and Derek, and you have been great from day one. Bill Cohan, I have known for a very long time in the community preservation days. And you, David, you know I've admired some of the things you have done, and I've told you that. Kevin Canty is a very intelligent person who was brilliant on the Finance Committee. And I hope your brilliance continues to show itself. Dab, great to have a woman on the Select Board, and it's great to have a woman like you. And behind me, I have our handsome fire chief and our handsome police chief And the DPW director that I met when he first came here, right? And Charlie Bletzer, always a good guy, always a good guy. And here's our town clerk. Remember that day when you first came and I said, I got to interview the town clerk? She didn't really like it. But she reluctantly, I think with a nudge from Mr. Derek over there, agreed to talk to me. And I remember one of the times that I wanted to talk, one of the things I wanted to talk to her about is how many dogs are there in Plymouth? I always did a story, this is like 9,000 or something, right? Yeah, I always did a story on how many dogs there were in Plymouth. I mean, I found it astounding. 9,000 dogs in Plymouth? So this town clerk looked at me as if, is this really what reporters do? To report on how many dogs in Plymouth? But she was great. She went on and did it. So Dick Quintal, you and I go pretty far back, don't we, Dick Quintal?
We certainly do, and I just have a few words. I met you some 20 years ago, and I can remember right where it happened, in front of the tax collector's office, roll-up window on 11 Lincoln Street. And you put your little radio recorder there, and you went like that to me, and I looked at you. You know, I was horrified with the press. I was. Anything like that. I was very shy. And I remember what I asked you. Do you remember what I asked you?
You said he was just elected. He had never been in politics before that I know of, you know. I think he just walked in the door and was really what is going to happen to me was kind of the look he had on his face. And what he said when I got the microphone out to hand it to him, he said, "Are you going to make me look bad?"
You remember?
I said, it is never my intent to make anybody look bad. You can make yourself look bad, but I won't let you look bad, right?
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
It's, you know what? One of the best things about this job is that mainly it's been a lot of fun. We did have a few tough times. We did have a few times when I think the town was baffled by things that were happening. One thing that I remember is Plymouth Rock Studios. Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Remember Plymouth Rock Studios?
Project Julia.
Do you remember being over on Lincoln Street in the meeting room, and there were people crowded into the room, they were trailing outside, they came from wherever, Carver, Worcester, wherever, because we were going to be Hollywood East. Got that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I could go on, but mercifully I won't, okay? But it's hard. I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss you all. I really am. Yeah, guys. And I'm going to leave because I can't stay here anymore and cry.
Well, thank you, Bobby, and we will certainly miss you as well.
Thank you.
I think it's a formality at this point, but we do have to adopt the actual resolution. Is there a motion from one of my colleagues to accept the resolution as presented?
I will make the motion to present approve the proclamation as presented.
Mr. Cohan makes the motion. Is there a second? Second. Mr. Canty seconds. Any discussion?
Just one point that I have to make with Bobby. Before you leave, Bobby, before you leave, in my 23 years of service in the town of Plymouth, I remember my first day I met you. I was in town hall and you came up to me with a microphone and you put the microphone in my face and you did it with such conviction and much determination that it struck me. It struck me that I had to get to know someone. And over those 23 years, we spent a lot of time talking about the different issues, and I found you to be an incredibly interesting person, a giving person, a nice person, and I think that came out in your reporting. So I'll always take that with me about your temperament and how you work with others. So thank you very much for your service and your lessons. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Mr. Canty?
Bill, you've done a great deal. You have served the town, and all of you serve the town. And serving the town is not nothing. It's not nothing. And I feel as though just being able to report on people who do these things and do them with it seeming to be nothing, I marvel at how they do it day after day after day. And every time I put that mic in front of their faces, they always responded, always responded. So my hat, if I had a hat, I'd take it off to you.
Mr. Canty?
So, Bobby, I've had an opportunity to work with you for a while, and my undergrad degree was actually in journalism, so I've always really appreciated the work of particularly local journalists, that I think without them being there to report on issues, a lot of people wouldn't know what's going on here at Town Hall. You've always been extremely accommodating. You're quick to respond to issues, and will reach out and you're always willing to meet me wherever I could meet you to talk about a story, which is very convenient since we're all busy people. And I remember growing up having WATD and having the Old Colony Memorial. Now we don't really have the Old Colony anymore. We do have the Independent. And I think it's important to have these local journalism outlets so that people can be informed about what is happening. And you've certainly played an important role in that. And I thank you for your service, which I know can be very time-consuming in its own right. And keeping up on everything is in itself a full-time job. But a lot of people probably were able to follow us because they were following you. So thank you for that.
Kevin, thank you so much. You have a lot to give to the town. I hope you give it.
I will do my best. Thank you for giving everything you have all these years.
Mr. Quinto?
So Bobby goes back a long way, for 20 years. And after that first night, I think, were you part of our delegation when we had the anniversary year in Shishigahama? You forgot that, didn't you?
Yes, I went to Shishigahama.
Yeah, you had fun?
We
fun.
had a great time.
Yes, we did.
You know about that?
No, they're all different chiefs, son.
You too. Yeah, everybody who goes, people talk about Shishigahama as being a junket spendthrift kind of thing. It really is a cultural exchange. It really is wonderful, isn't it, Chief? To have their fire chief, Chief Flynn, to have our police chief, to be received by their police chief. Did you give him your badge? Did you give away your badges? Yeah. When I went, that's the only time I went, I saw the police chief give his badge to the other police chief. I thought, my God, it's his badge. And I said to him, Chief, you gave him his badge. He said, got another one, Bobby, don't worry about a thing.
So that was then, and there's been so many other times, and I'm just going to shorten it up as saying I really enjoyed working with you. From the days when we had a press table at a Lincoln Street at all our meetings, we had 3 reporters and the radio station. It was a lot different then. But I can't say anything negative about you. You've always been great. You have. We haven't always agreed, and that's okay. But, like Kevin said, you always come to wherever we are. I've been to your house. I've been on the phone with you. And when you want a story, you're determined. And you know what? I always go out of my way to make sure that I can at least respond to you because I respect you that much.
You always have.
And
You always
I
have
always
responded.
have the highest respect for you, and I wish others would follow you. So, good luck. I know you're not going anywhere, and I know we're going to have another story, so till next time. But thank you.
Well, thank you all. So I can say goodbye?
Well, we're going to take the vote. I want you to stick around for
No,
that.
not goodbye. Not goodbye. See you later.
See you later.
Okay? See you later.
If you wouldn't mind, I'd love to take a picture with you and as many of the folks who are here who would like to join us. Very good. I'll call the roll. Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Quinto,
Yes.
Mr. Canty,
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto, and myself, yes, it's unanimous. Congratulations, Bobby, and good luck in the next phase. She can't, so you. Let's go. All right. Now, we'll move on to some less fun business here tonight. Not that we don't appreciate the folks who applied, but that was certainly one of the more joyous occasions that I've had since joining this board. The next item on our agenda is the Climate Action Net Zero Committee appointment. We have one term, which is expiring June 30th, 2027. We have two candidates. The first is Michael Lasnik. Is Michael in the room? Is Michael on Zoom? Okay. The next candidate is Kerry Wooten. Is Kerry in the room? Is Kerry on Zoom? Okay. Neither of the candidates are here. What's the pleasure of the board?
Were they notified to attend the meeting to? Did you hear from them were they notified to attend the meeting, or
Yes.
did they say they were attending, or did we ever hear from them?
No, neither of them responded.
Okay,
Typically, candidates don't respond.
okay. Just want to make sure they had the opportunity to come in and speak to us.
We could re-advertise, or if folks feel particularly strongly about either candidate, we could also take a vote. It's up to the board. Mr. Canty?
I feel uncomfortable appointing someone to a position without any level of in-person or Zoom interview. If we are going to appoint someone to fill a position that is contested. So I would ask that we re-advertise. That'd be my preference.
Is there any objection, Mr. Cohen?
No objection. I would support that.
Okay, let's re-advertise. And Jade, I would say too, let's just reach out, back out to these folks. Perhaps they were traveling and let them know we're going to re-advertise and that they can be part of the appointment process if they wish to continue their application. All right, we'll move on to Natural Resources and Coastal Beaches Committee appointment. We have one term that's expiring June 30th of 2026. It's a neighbor from Morton Park. And we have three applicants. The first is Lee Corwin. Is Lee in the room? Is Lee online? All right. Is Kevin McCune in the room? Come on up, Mr. McCune. If you could introduce yourself, let us know a little bit about why you want to be part of this committee, and then there may be some questions from the board.
Sure. My name's Kevin McCune. I'm at Columbia Circle. I've been there for probably 35 or so years. All my kids went to school through the Plymouth system. I recently retired about a year and a half ago, and some people saw this advertisement and contacted me and said this would be right up your alley. I've been kind of looking for something to volunteer with the town. So to be honest, I really don't know what this committee does, but I can give you some background, and if you think I would be a good fit, that would be fine. So my background is I retired from the electric company. I did 30 years there. For most of that time, I permitted all of the large and small projects, gas and electric. By permitting, it was all of the natural resources permits. You guys are familiar with Concom permits. I did all of the endangered species permitting, the siting for the state to site the projects. I did all the historic permitting, so I'm familiar with any of the historic stuff. I dealt with the tribal issues. From there, I went on and I actually led the group. And then through mergers, I was overseeing a group that did that same type of environmental, natural resource, historic permitting for the projects in the states of Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. Then I retired from there, and then I went to a large national, actually it's a global, but mostly national engineering firm. And I was an executive there. I was associate vice president in their energy and environment group. I did that for about 6 years. And I had basically the Northeast region, all of New England, New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey. And then I just retired from there about a year and a half ago. So now I figured it was time to kind of give back to the town, and this looked like a good committee. I could probably, but I really don't, to be honest, I don't know if I'm a good fit or not. I'm just kind of leaving it up to you. I don't know. So
Well,
that's
congratulations
my
on your
story.
retirement, and thank you for applying.
Thank you.
I'll open it to the board for questions. Mr. Canty?
Hi, Mr. McCune.
Hello.
So I remember you from the neighborhood. I grew up
Yes.
at 48.
Yes. Yep.
So I guess my threshold question would be about the position that you applied for, and this would maybe be more of a question for Ms. Anderton. Is this, it being neighbor from Morton Park, they're intended to be someone that lives in or immediately around Morton Park, I would take that to mean?
So I consulted with the staff liaison, who's Karen McCall, in Energy and Environment, and it seems that the guidelines with that are a little bit blurry, and it's up to the select board's discretion.
Okay.
She took it to mean anyone that could be really in like walking distance or in daily enjoyment of the park.
Okay. Well, the neighborhood is it's in West Plymouth, but it's a
Right.
bit of a hike from.
Walking? Yes.
Right.
I'm not going to walk there.
Correct. That'd be a day in and of
I mean,
itself.
I go there quite a bit. I mean, it's a nice place
You
to
do?
go and walk. I'm not
Okay.
far away, but yeah, I'm not.
No, you're not
walking.
far, but
I'm not,
you're.
it's not my neighborhood. No.
Right, but
Right.
you're a bit, it's probably 15 minutes by car, depending on if you hit the light.
Yeah.
Right. Would you, if you were not appointed to this due to the geographical constraints, would you, there are other positions that are not geographically constrained on this particular committee and on many other committees. You just happen to apply for one that has a geographical constraint.
Yeah, I really wasn't aware of that, the
Okay.
restraint of that.
Yeah.
I knew it was Morton Park, but I didn't know there was a geographical tie
Yeah,
to
and
it.
I looked up, the other applicants are like right there.
Oh, perfect.
So,
Perfect.
obviously one of them didn't show up, so I'm not
No,
giving
that's
them.
perfect.
But I just, it's I appreciate your enthusiasm, and it's good to give back to your community. And I still remember you always waving when I was playing football on the street,
Yeah.
and soccer and basketball as a
Yeah.
kid. So it's nothing personal, but I do think being familiar with the area, it is a little farther away than,
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yep.
So I would encourage you to apply for either one of the other positions when they become available on this one, or there are upwards of 40 different boards and committees in the town. And, we'd love to have your services on some of those, but
Sure.
thank you very much.
No, I understand. I think the best person, if somebody lives it there, all the better.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for
right.
applying. Our next applicant is Joseph McMahon. Is Joseph in the room? Is Joseph online? Well, that answers that, Mr. Canty. So we do have one applicant, the geographic constraints notwithstanding. What is the pleasure of the board?
We didn't advertise, we can't appoint him to it tonight, even if there were, but are there currently any other vacancies on this particular committee? No?
And what is the position that we're filling?
The neighbor.
Yeah, the neighbor qualification, but someone said that the position starts in June or ends in June or
It expires June 30th.
of this year?
Yeah.
So we're filling.
Well, 2026.
Yeah, so we're filling. Okay, all right, understood. I do think we should try to see if we can get the applicants in for an interview because they fulfill this requirement of being a neighborhood person. I think especially for Morton Park, this is very case sensitive.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that the only person that was in physical attendance is someone that I knew for a fact lived outside of the neighborhood. Yeah. The odds of that were low, but they did occur.
So I would propose that we re-advertise the position and see if we can notify these two if they do intend to apply to come in for their interview. I know it's a tricky time of the year, we're in between the holidays, so it might have been a logistical thing.
Is there any objection to Mr. Cohan's proposal?
No objection, I
No.
agree with Mr. Coleman.
All right. Please re-advertise, similar as our last appointment for the Cans Committee. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the roads acceptance policy. Mr. Coyle is here from the DPW to walk us through the proposal. Mr. Coyle?
Okay, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for having me. Before I start the presentation, I just wanted to publicly express my appreciation to my DPW staff for the past week. They've been out, I think, every single day, in particular all night long, with the exception of Christmas Day, I think. So I know they're very tired, but in looking at the forecast for tomorrow night, I think they're going to be out again tomorrow night. So I just want to let them know how much I appreciate their hard work. So thank you. So thank you for having me. I'd like to discuss the overview for the street acceptance policy this evening. There's a lot to cover. This is kind of an abbreviated version of a much more lengthy policy that we're currently working on. As you are aware, this was a goal of the town managers and also, which is a goal of DPW as well, to develop this policy this year. And we're working closely with the roadway advisory committee as well. So if I could, I'll go through the policy. And again, it's only a draft. There's several things in here I think that we need to discuss on how to proceed. But I think this is at least the beginning of some of the discussion points that we should have. So if you could allow me to speak for a few minutes, I will go through this and then answer any questions you may have. Okay, so step one is the petition process. So obviously the first step would be for the abutters to sign a petition. We put in a requirement of 80% of the owner's signatures for the roadway being petitioned. And I think the reason that we looked at 80% is we felt that was similar to a supermajority of the board being 4 out of 5 would be 80%. But obviously that's something that we could discuss. Once the petition is completed, that petition would then be submitted to the DPW director for review. Step 2, DPW and Town Council will review the submitted petition. The DPW would conduct a roadway evaluation and prepare a preliminary cost estimate for the roadway improvements and street acceptance. Note the cost estimate would include all costs associated with the acceptance process and roadway improvements, including survey, design, engineering, title reviews, appraisals, lawyers' fees, land acquisitions if they are necessary, and construction costs. In terms of the costs, and we'll talk a little bit more about betterments, we just wanted to point out that a lot of the communities, when you look at betterments, there's different percentages that the abutters would have to pay. And this would be something that we could discuss also on how many years do you spread this out? Is this 10 years? Is it 20 years? Is, the different dollar values if it's paid up front. And again, that's something we could talk a little bit more about. But one of the options would be that 100% of the responsibility would be the abutters along the roadway, or it could be 75% or 50%. So just something to think about as we discuss this process. Then step number 3, roadway advisory committee review. Obviously very important to get the roadway advisory committee involved early in the process. So we would schedule a meeting with the roadway advisory committee and discuss street acceptance and the cost of the improvements with the petitioners or their representative. And at this point, we would actually want to have a rough estimate of what that cost would be per resident. So we would develop that rough number, because that will probably change as we move forward, but we want to give the abutters an idea what that cost would be. So step 4, the agreement for the betterment. The DPW would develop a preliminary betterment cost per abutter based on the roadway frontage. Again, some communities may look at that differently as well. I think the majority of them do use roadway frontage, but again, it's something we could discuss whether or not you could look at area as another consideration. I think the majority of most communities use frontage. Property owners would sign the acknowledgement of the agreement for a betterment to be assessed. The abutters must sign and then return the agreements. Step 5, the required agreements are submitted to the DPW director for review and submission to the town manager. Upon review of the agreements by the town manager, town council, if approved, would be forwarded to the select board for approval. If less than 100% or 80% minimum are required to sign the agreements, they're returned, I'm sorry, kind of have a hard time reading that. Minimum required of the signed agreements are returned, 4/5 vote from the select board to waive the 100% requirement is needed to advance the project forward. So if we don't get 100% and at least 80%, we would be looking for a 4/5 supermajority board vote to continue the process forward. Step number 6, petitioner submissions. We'd be looking to have the legal documents submitted, the deeds, the title certifications for all persons owning fee in the roadway and utility easements in the lots. A certified list of abutters, the meets and bounds legal description of the roadway layout and easements, a layout plan prepared by a registered land surveyor, and roadway as-built. Now, keep in mind, these steps can vary from road to road. Some roads, there'll already be a layout plan that was developed. If this is a relatively newer roadway that may have had a plan prepared 10 years ago, there could be a layout plan that already existed. So some of these steps we may not need to perform, but I wanted to at least have these in place, kind of worst case scenario. And also a roadway as-built plan. Again, some of the newer subdivisions may already have a roadway as-built plan prepared. Step number 7, the notification of the layout public meeting. A public layout meeting will be held, that's held before the select board. Notification of said meeting must be given to all owners, property owners. The notice shall contain the meets and bounds description and reference all assessor map and parcel numbers where takings/rights are to be acquired. So that's, again, if there are land takings required, if we don't get 100% of the property owners to sign and donate those rights to the town, there's potential that there would be eminent domain takings required. Step 8, official select board vote, and this is reference to the layout, the layout hearing. Once the layout meeting has been held, the select board may officially vote to adopt the layout. Now, adopting it as a layout does not make it a town road at this point. That's just defining a right-of-way. It still needs to go through the town meeting process for acceptance. Step 9, so town meeting, following an affirmative vote, for the select board, the town shall place an article on the town meeting warrant for acceptance of the road. Town meeting votes, following an affirmative vote by the town meeting, the town will have 120 days to acquire the land by gift, purchase, or taking per MGL, and and record all the documents and plans at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds. Step 10, the roadway construction and betterment assessment. Upon completion of the acquisition and/or roadway improvements, each abutting owner shall be billed for the 100% of their proportionate share of the actual total cost for the completed roadway improvements and associated costs laying out and accepting the road as a public way. And that is the overall process. And I know there's a lot there. And in each instance, it can vary. But in general, those are the steps that we would see. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Coyle. Questions from the board? Mr. Canty?
Thank you, Mr. Coyle. You mentioned with your breakdown of potential cost sharing, whether it's 100% the applicant abutters or whether it's a portion is town provided. I think you referenced that different communities do that at different rates. Do you have examples of like what either some of our neighbors do or some of the communities that do the 100% versus the 75-25 or the 50-50?
Sure, I can just tell you from my own experience in the communities that I've worked, it was 100% of the betterment cost.
Yep.
I can get additional information for you regarding some of the adjacent towns as well.
Okay.
And to kind of give you an idea of what the norm is in the immediate neighboring communities.
Okay, and if, just for clarity's purposes, if the road already met all the standards of the DPW, there would be no betterment assessment, correct?
That's correct. There are roads that may have been built 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
That meet all of the town standards, that we could potentially just advance those forward.
So you're really just looking, because, I know there are subdivisions in West Plymouth, Manomet, Cedarville that were built in over decades ago to maybe to the standards of that time, but haven't been kept up with the evolving standards of the DPW. You're really just, if you did it 100%, you're looking for the private road that seeks to become a public road to pay to bring it up to the public road standard, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
And just to provide some clarification in terms of how many, when I say private roads, it's also referenced as unaccepted roads.
Yes.
So I kind of use the terms interchangeably.
Right.
But the town has a total of 133 miles of unaccepted or private roads.
Right.
And of the 133, 73 are paved and 60 are gravel. So it's a significant number of roadway miles. I can say that it is also one of the, biggest calls, or most frequent calls that we
Right.
get at DPW is regarding private roads.
And once it's public, once we did accept it, we'd be responsible for its maintenance and upkeep from there.
Correct. We do plow probably half of the private roads currently. But once accepted, we would maintain the road completely. And the benefit of accepting the road is we would then get Chapter 90 funds.
Right.
Which would be equivalent to about $10,000 per year per mile, roughly.
Okay. Yeah, and I know that longer term, when we were accepting roads, the theory was we wanted to accept roads that were going to be an asset, not a liability, so that they would be a positive net gain to our Chapter 90 acquisition rather than something that is taking money from the Chapter 90 pot.
Right. I agree with that logic. To me, if we accept roadways that are fairly new, we can collect the Chapter 90 funds for those roadways and
Right.
hopefully not have to do a lot of work or a
For-
lot of maintenance on them.
Prolonged period. Right.
Correct.
Whereas if we were to accept a private road in a poor state and then have to pay to upkeep it and maintain it, then that would be a net negative for everybody in the
Correct,
community having to pay for that.
And when we look at the roads, my vision would be that they wouldn't necessarily have to meet town subdivision standards, because some roads just can't, quite frankly, meet those standards. So
Okay.
if the roadway is currently 20 feet wide or 22 feet and there's no sidewalk, we wouldn't say that you have to put in sidewalk on both sides of the road. We want a 50-foot right-of-way. I think we would look at each roadway case by case and review them and then come up with what, if the roadway is 20 feet wide currently, we're not looking to blow that out to 24 or 26 feet with sidewalk on both sides. We just want to make the road passable and good condition, and something then the town could then accept and maintain.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Mr. Cohen?
So if we go back to step 7, notification of said meeting must be given to all owners. How do you how is that notification process engaged?
We would send out certified letters to each, we'd get a certified list of abutters and send out a certified letter to each one of the abutters,
So it's the butters of
the property owners.
So they get a certified letter?
Yes.
Okay, good. And then if we go back to the end, 10, you have obviously this imposing a betterment, which is a new concept here in the town of Plymouth. This would be new. Obviously, the residents within these subdivisions, these roads have been plowed. The town plows them, obviously, to get fire and ambulances into areas as needed. But the level of service they're getting from the town is limited to plowing. Is there any other type of things that typically you do other than plowing that would be common?
For the most
notable.
part, the plowing is common to, again, about half of the private roads. Town meeting has approved funds for drainage improvements along private roads and also some limited maintenance on private roads as well has been approved at town meeting.
Right.
So, and I will say from my experience, the town of Plymouth does more on private roads than any community I've ever seen. I think it's something that is great for the residents. A lot of communities won't even touch the road. But we do perform limited maintenance as well on them.
I think Plymouth is in a unique situation because we've built so many of these subdivisions and these people live there and pay taxes, so they're looking for a level of service. So very few towns have grown as much as we have residentially. So obviously, that association might be connected to that example of Plymouth doing these things. I know that that we've been, there are roads that have been gone through a process so far. They've gone through as far as the roads committee for approval. And would this program, if voted on by the board, would require these entities to now adjust to that new policy, even though they've gone through the process?
I'm not aware that, when you
Yeah.
say have gone through the process, I'm not aware that any roads have gone through any specific process. I think one neighborhood went before the roadway advisory committee, and I think there was a recommendation made to the board to move that neighborhood forward. I think it's up to the board and obviously up to town meeting at some point, or whether or not, if this policy or some form of this policy is accepted, whether or not that would apply to anybody moving forward at this point. And again, we have to go through a formal review process. Town council would need to review the process as well.
But that's really open to the pleasure of the board and how we implement it to some of the roads that are already going through the process.
And there's a lot you have to look at. For example, and I know there's some residents from Shallow Pond Estates here, and obviously that's been one that's been on the radar for a while now. In each individual roadway, you have to do a title search and to see if the owners have title to the center line of the road. And in some instances, in particular, in that subdivision, there's roughly 50 properties that they don't have clear title to the center of the roadway. So sometimes it's not as easy as the property owner just signing over their rights, because they may not have the rights to the center of the roadway. So then you have to do a title search and find out, well, who actually has ownership or rights to that right of way. And then, we can try to reach out to that property owner. If it's owner unknown and you can't find that property owner, then the town may have to do an eminent domain taking for the property. So there's a lot of legal, implications on how we move forward in terms of making sure we dot our I and cross the T, and that we have clear title to all the property before we accept the roadway.
Obviously, the end result is the more roads that we accept, the better off we are with Chapter 90, which is funds meant to help us with the care of our and maintenance and improvements of our roads. So there's obviously these incentivizations. I just wanted to, and I think you touched on the neighborhood. I believe Shallow Pond has been going through this process for a number of years for unique circumstances that have put a lot of pressure on that neighborhood and the access points to it. So I just wanted to just clarify that with you.
Right, and I do think you'd have to look at that and how you move that forward again, because you have to look at the layout, the right of way, and who has ownership of that right of way.
Yeah, and I guess that would go back to later on tonight, we'll hear from the planning director and the planning department and future endeavors from that division. But obviously, a lot of these issues stem from the origins of the subdivision and how it was approved and how it was built out and who built it out at one point in time. So obviously, we should try to pay attention, because this process is going to end. There's going to be other subdivisions that be coming through the town of Plymouth, and it would be a good idea to get a handle on when improving these permits in these subdivisions, to get a handle on the condition of the road and the ownership of the road and where it goes in terms of the abutters.
I think the intent, when these roads are approved as HOAs, is good intent, to have the buy-in from the residents that they would be responsible for maintaining the road. But from what I've seen, and not just in Plymouth, but in other communities, the developer will seek waivers and basically explain the fact that, well, the town's not going to own or maintain this road. This will be privately owned and privately maintained. And then 5 years, 10 years down the road, the HOA is either no longer in existence or just never really was formalized. And the property owners, they come to us, say, well, we pay taxes too, and they do. And we expect the same, treatment, and we want our road accepted. So I do think, with the exception of maybe, the really large HOAs, Pine Hills and Red Brook. The smaller ones, they don't always succeed, and that's when we get the phone calls.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying it's nice that the director is here this evening to hear this conversation. Obviously, you as a division head talking to another division head about the experiences you were having about adopting these roads and the dilemmas that one would face, and they come back from the origin of the subdivision and the permits approved and who was going to take care of the road and what condition, what money was left there for those purposes. So just going forward in the future, as you adopt this new policy, obviously trying to convey that information from your office to another office so that as they go through the permitting process, they avoid the pitfalls that you have encountered.
Right, absolutely, thank you.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Mr. Boyle, thank you very much for the issues you mentioned. I mean, the real statement of chase off the expenses. I think every road tells a story in certain mistakes.
True.
Like the way you think is how really the steps that are, make sense. It's not, it's not us. I totally appreciate.
Thank you.
I just had a couple of, from Sam, just had a couple of questions to declare one. So, the betterment was required to be overseen by the DPW.
Yes.
And then I do understand you guys still explore actions for our workers to do that. It does say in step 10, it says that 20% of the share would be all at once, and then just take the works and then not, which they get.
They could do that, and in talking with Lynn Barrett, there's options we could look at, whether it's over a 10-year or 20-year betterment. So that's something we could look at doing as well.
Okay, so it could be staggered over time, so it's one big hit.
Right.
And then, the last question I have, and this probably is not one that is easy to answer, but this seems like a very long process.
The process itself is very long because you have to make sure, the biggest thing to me is defining that layout, that right-of-way. Because if there's no clear title to the right-of-way and the land takings are involved, you have to have appraisals have to be done. So you have to hire an appraiser, you have to have the appraisals completed, find out what that dollar value is, then you have to have a town meeting for the land takings. So just to get the right-of-way to exist, now you need town meeting. So could you potentially go to town meeting with the land takings? Potentially, but we'd have to look at, well, how do you can you have a layout hearing if you don't have clear title to the layout? So that's something I have to work with town council on, because you may need that clear title in order to have a layout hearing. It's something I'd have to do a little more research on that.
So it sounds like this could take potentially years for us to go through this process, be accepted and.
The newer ones could happen much faster, because if they have a clear right-of-way or layout defined, we could use that layout plan and hold the layout hearing with that plan. And that just has to be done before we open the warrant for the next town meeting. So you hold the layout hearing, and then if that's approved by the select board, then you could then put that on the warrant for acceptance for the town road to be accepted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? On step 2, you had a note in here about the total cost for acceptance and betterment. And you presented 3 options, 100, 75, or 50. Are you looking for guidance from the board, what we would want?
I think we are looking for guidance, but I'm certainly happy to come back to the board with more information on some of the surrounding communities.
Yeah.
If they have a betterment process, not every community will have a betterment process, but we can get you more information.
Yeah, I think if we have that information, we could better advise. Mr. Canty?
I think it would make sense to have it be 100% because they're asking a private liability to become a public liability. And we want it to come on board in the state of an asset, and then we'd maintain it from there. But I don't want to inherit somebody's bad road and then make everybody else in the community pay for bringing it up to standards. Also, as you mentioned, like the big HOAs or LOAs, Pine Hills and Red Brook, point of contention at times from some of their residents is that they're paying the same taxes as everybody else, but that they're not getting the same level of services. And they have approached me about that, and I've said, I understand, but that is the deal that was made when Pine Hills was created.
Right.
And it's difficult to say that to them if we're then going to apply a different standard to a subdivision with a bad HOA from 1982 in West Plymouth or someplace in Manamet. I think we have to be consistent whether you're a little HOA that didn't make it or you're a big LOA that's looking to offload a liability onto the town. But I do think that having the ability to put it out over time would be more fair, like we do with the Title V betterments for their septic. And with a reasonable interest rate, so that both sides are kept relative, but over a 10 or 20-year period, something like that, so that it's not, I think having a neighborhood of 20 to 25 houses come up with a large sum to repair their road that has been barely maintained for 30 or more years would be a big ask, because they're not probably used to special assessments like people living in a condo would be, and they may not have that in their budget. But putting it out over a long enough period of time would make that more equitable for everybody involved. So that would be my personal preference. I think that strikes a balance between the interest of the neighborhood in having their road maintained like every other road, but the interest in the community in getting the road in a good state of repair so that everyone else isn't repairing their road.
I agree, and I think one of the discussions I can have with Lynn Barrett is if we can provide them with an option. If you pay it up front, this is your cost.
Yeah.
If you pay over a 10-year period, this is your annual payment or a 20-year
Right,
period. So
right.
they'll give them the option of how they want to proceed.
Right, right. I mean, if a neighborhood wants to pay it all at once, there's no reason not to let them do that. But I do think it would probably, in many of those neighborhoods, be in their interest to pay it over
I agree.
time. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Cohen?
Yeah, just to, in step 2 and step 10, step 10 is saying 100%, step 2 is giving us these options. Kevin is pointing out the 100% concept. Earlier, I was pointing out the fact that these people are paying taxes, and they just want to be proportional and balanced when it comes to the taxes that they're paying and the services they're getting. So I prefer to kind of leave it in the pleasure of the board on a range that we could work on based on the recommendations of the DPW and the condition of the road. That might be something that might be, that could be put into play to incentivize the subdivision to come up to a standard which would be manageable if we took it under the care and protection of the town. As you mentioned before, you prefer to take a street that was in good condition, collect the Chapter 90 money for a period of time, and then build up for a point of resurfacing that road down the road so that you would have lessened the impact of taking on the road and the financial burden. It's just a thought process of looking at this idea of 100% or another percent, and maybe, like Deb mentioned, on a case-by-case basis in terms of the condition of the road. Something to think about. The other thing is there are examples already in the town of Plymouth where the town of Plymouth and some residents are paying for something. Ratepayers of the sewer system here in the town of Plymouth are paying for the treatment plant.
Correct.
And, even though everybody uses the treatment plant to deposit solid materials from other facilities around the town of Plymouth, the pumping that takes place, and it comes to our transfer station and people using the businesses downtown. It was kind of a unique situation for the first time. We really kind of made an announcement that that a certain demographic in the community would be paying for that. So it's not a direction I think we should be going in, because I think what we have to do is take on the responsibility as a town in its entirety. So we have a responsibility to provide this level of services. And so there are examples where we have ventured down that road. But I do like the idea of coming up with a comprehensive policy. So look forward to seeing the next steps.
Absolutely. No, we are working on a comprehensive policy, as you mentioned, and we'll continue working on that and have, coordinate with town council to go over the policy as well. And just to clarify, is that I think on that slide, I think it was slide number 9, paid the 100% would be 100% of what was approved. So if it's 50%, it would be the 100%, responsible for 100% of what that requirement or what that required cost would be.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, the only other thing that I would add is that it would be great if we could see this in like a Word format for a future meeting for when we do move forward with adoption. Getting a little old, so seeing the yellow up there on the board was a little challenging tonight.
Yeah, well, we do have, absolutely, it was a little challenging for me too, so I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for being here tonight, and we look forward to the final policy. Mr. Brindisi?
I just wanted to mention one thing that maybe I missed it, but we didn't talk about whether or not the board would want some type of low interest rate or no interest rate on this type of improvement. So that's something we'd be looking for guidance in the future.
Well, I think Mr. Canty did mention it. I think he had advocated for at least some low interest rate. I think we'd like to see your recommendations too. Mr. Canty, do you want to follow up?
Yeah, I'd say something at least 2%, maybe 3%. That's roughly in line with inflation. If you're paying it over a 10 or 20-year period, if you did like 1%, the town would be losing money over
Correct.
time. 2%, the town would likely be losing money over time based on inflationary trends. 3%, I think, is palatable, is likely to still, depending on economic fluctuations, lose a little bit of money over time, but I think is it's a low interest rate, but it's doable over that
Okay.
period of time. So
Sounds good.
something like 2 to 3%. I would not be in favor of lower than 2, and I'd be hard pressed to justify higher than 3.
Okay. Sounds good.
Mr. Cohen?
I do think that, I agree, but I do think that there might be a situation where we have an elderly person in hardship and the person has low-income status. Maybe there could be a zero interest. It's not uncommon to see a betterment at zero for someone in a hardship situation that qualifies. So we could set a qualification around that and leave that option for, different people in different circumstances. So it's something that we should keep open to, a zero interest for people who qualify for a hardship. And we would have to come up with a standard. We can look at other communities and how they address that issue with elderly individuals or people in a financial situation that might be burdensome.
You could tie it to statutory exemptions.
Right, that's
Timmy
what I was
Assessor's
going
Office.
Because if they were, because presumably they're in a hardship, it would be hard for them paying their property taxes as well. And this would be associated with that, so.
Which is, true, but it just tipping the scales, I guess, just avoiding.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too.
Happy New Year if I don't see anybody. Thank you.
Happy New Year. And thank you to your staff on behalf of the board as well. Next on our agenda is a planning department presentation. We're joined by the new Director of Planning and Development, Ms. Lauren Lind.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lauren Lind, and before I get started tonight, I would be remiss not to acknowledge my predecessor, Lee Hartman. He was here in the town for 37 years, more than half of which he spent as Director of Planning and Development, so I want to thank him. I spent about a little over 18 months working alongside him as Deputy Director, learning from him, and I know that he had a really profound impact on this community and was very well respected. He leaves behind large shoes to fill, so I want to thank him, and I want to thank the Select Board and Town Management for instilling the confidence in me in order to fulfill the role of director moving forward. So thank you. Tonight, I'm here to talk about an overview of the Planning and Development Department. I thought it was an opportune time to introduce myself and my background to all of you in the public who may not be that familiar with me, take an opportunity to describe what our department does and our staff structure, our organization, what our responsibilities and goals and priorities are, how those align with the goals and priorities that this select board has set for fiscal year 26, and then have an opportunity for all of you to comment and give me your thoughts as to what, knowing our capacity that we have here and what our goals that exist, what else do you want to see, where might we align for future moving forward. So I have a lot of information to cover. I will try to be concise about it, and I thank you for your time. Here you'll see an organizational chart that goes along with the budget. This is the budget document. This reflects all of the staff that we have in our department, and in addition, the Plymouth Redevelopment Authority is shown on this. I want to make the distinction that the PRA is a private independent public agency. We do not have administrative staff or any management over that. However, there is an office within the Department of Planning and Development in town that there is a staff member there that works at the PRA. When we discuss budget and when we go to the Advisory and Finance Committee, you'll see myself and Paul, but just to make the distinction that he is not actually a staff member of our department. So I want to discuss the organizational chart as it stands in terms of our structure. There's myself as the new Director of Planning and Development, and we have just recently brought in a new Deputy Director of Planning and Development, Michael Silveira. He just started with us on December 15th, so we're working on onboarding him and getting him up to speed and plugged in with the town. We have an administrative assistant to the director of the department, and then we have 4 divisions. It's community planning, community development, conservation, and tourism and economic development. All of these staff here, with the exception of our tourism and economic development administrative assistant, are full-time staff members, but that administrative assistant for economic services and tourism is a part-time staff person. This department has seen a tremendous amount of staff capacity and transition fluctuations in the last 3 to 6 months. As I just mentioned, Lee Hartman retired. We had other retirements in the department. We've had various staff that have either been promoted, brought in from other departments to fill vacancies, new staff. We've had a lot of FMLA leaves in this department, so it has been a fluctuating capacity and bandwidth challenge at times, but we've been doing our best to keep things afloat. And what I have shown you here is that while we have various staff members plugged into the divisions, our planning technician and assistant conservation planner really has been fulfilling the conservation planner role for some time now, as we have an extended leave of absence in our conservation planner position right now. We're anticipating that they will return, but it's unknown at this point. So I just want to note that in terms of our capacity for conservation and planning, we're hedging the gap and doing what we can with what we have, but there's a bit of a crunch there for time. I'll speak about the initiatives and responsibilities that we have for each division. Community planning really thinks about all things land use planning and permitting, thinking about coordination between town departments. For example, as you just heard from our Public Works Director, things like talking about subdivision rules and regulations and how that overlaps and the impact that that has on that department. Working very closely with inspectional services and building, as the building commissioner really is the enforcement officer for all of the zoning, all of the decisions that are issued by the permit granting authorities in town. And communicating with the public. It's, whether it's someone coming in to ask us about an application that's been before them, or what does this zoning bylaw mean, what's going on with the master plan. We're there for really to be a liaison between various structures of players in town, if you will. We have a staff person specifically charged with doing permit condition tracking and compliance monitoring. So anytime there is a subdivision or a special permit that is approved and there are conditions of approval, we have someone that makes sure that those are being met, following up with those developers and applicants and making sure that inspectional services has what they need to proceed with various stages of building permit and issuance of things like certificates of occupancy. We provide administrative and professional staff to a variety of boards and committees, including the Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals, the Historic District Commission, the Master Plan Committee, the Affordable Housing Trust, Village Steering Committees, there are 5 of them, and then coming soon, we'll have the new Earth Removal Bylaw Committee that we're getting underway shortly. When we look at community development, this is a unique division in that they are entirely funded through community development block grant funding. All of their salary lines do not come out of the general fund municipal budget, and it is funded through this grant program. They do a variety of programs, income qualified rehab loans, down payment assistance. They issue the Title V septic system repair program, small business microloans. They offer a program for graffiti removal on private property, and they also provide administrative support to the Plymouth Affordable Housing Trust. We are actively working with this group of staff to build up their involvement in all things affordable housing beyond just what that's covered under the CDBG program. Conservation is all things wetlands and floodplain mapping. They work with the Conservation Commission very closely, looking at review and approval of work within or near wetlands resources. They provide administrative and professional staff to the Conservation Commission, Open Space Committee, the Land Use and Acquisition Committee, and when we are at full staff capacity and have a conservation planner fully plugged in, they also staff the Agricultural Commission. They have special projects like trail mapping and other sort of the fun things that you think of when you think about open space and recreation facilities, working on the townwide cleanups that happen twice a year, and they also have a pollinator program that they've done in the past. Economic development and tourism, as I mentioned, this has one part-time staff person, and in addition, the visitor service board, the director of planning and development also attends. So this group, or this staff person, I should say, really staffs special events permitting and the oversight of the promotion fund. The promotion fund is a set aside of our hotel and motel tax, where 45% of that tax revenue is set aside in a special fund given to the visitor service board to fund things like all sorts of economic development and tourism activities. 10% of that, all that money that they receive does have to go to public improvements. So you'll see each year there are certain programs that come every year. Sometimes it's special assistant that is requested of this group, but this is an exciting group to work with that's uniquely Plymouth because there was special legislation that allowed this promotion fund to be established. In addition, we update all sorts of planning documents, whether it's the current development map, working on the zoning bylaw map updates, the various plans. This is just a couple that we list. The Plymouth Comprehensive Plan, which is formerly the Master Plan, Housing Production Plan. I could go on for a while. In addition to the plans that our department really shepherds and takes management of, there are other plans in the community that we are partnership with. So we try not to work in a silo. We want to communicate with our other divisions. For example, there's the Climate Adaptation and Adaptation Plan. There's other planning initiatives through the Center for Active Living. And so we're really there to work as a liaison between these various groups and planning initiatives that have been community priorities. And in addition, the Director of Planning and Development serves as a liaison to various local and regional groups, including the Plymouth Regional Economic Development Foundation, as well as the Old Colony Planning Council, which is our regional planning organization, as well as the MBTA Advisory Board and the Old Colony MPO. So goals and priorities that the department has established that I see, I've sort of put these in two buckets as immediate and mid to long term. This doesn't say that this is everything on my radar, but this is really sort of the higher priority items. As I mentioned, a lot of staff transition and onboarding, getting everyone up to speed, understanding where we have staff strengths and weaknesses. This is essential for me to understand and gain a new normal for this department so that I can understand where we need to go and if there is any bandwidth concerns that we might need additional staffing capacity. I'm working on, like I said, establishing a new normal so that I can identify what that is. Working on enhancing departmental communications. This is both within our own department and also with the other departments in town. For example, department communications, I am working with the new deputy to have established regular reoccurring meetings with our different divisions so that we can do a little dividing and conquering and making sure that we're making efficient use of everyone's time, but making sure that all the divisions within our own department are communicating effectively. We are going to work on updating the guide to permitting. This guide to permitting is supposed to be sort of like a one-stop manual for anybody looking to do permitting through the land use boards. It's outdated, it needs to be updated, it's cumbersome. So as we look to update that, we also want to find efficiencies. And the goal here is to make it user-friendly so that anybody, whether it's a homeowner, a small business owner, someone looking to develop property in town, they know the roadmap of where they need to go because permitting requires a lot of steps, a lot of boards that they need to go to, and we're trying to make it sort of a streamlined, here's the roadmap for what you need to do. We're looking at the various policies and procedures, whether it's department or town by board. For example, the planning board has a series of policies, some of which have not been updated in over a decade. So we're looking to just do an inventory of what those are, what need to be updated, and how can we work on that. Another example of a policy that is sort of not particularly written in stone, but every application that is referred to the Zoning Board of Appeals goes to the Planning Board for an advisory report. This can be something as simple as a special permit for a porch addition on a non-conforming home. I see it as it winds up filling up planning board agendas and taking up time where they could be looking at things like more strategic planning and forward thinking, looking at our comprehensive plan, what the goals are. And if we could free up some of their agenda time and do an administrative staff review on some of those items that are not as pressing, then I think that would make both the planning and the zoning board's jobs more effective in terms of timeline. It would also help reduce the barriers for these small businesses, small homeowners that are having to come to multiple meetings and in some scenarios paying professionals to be at multiple board and evening commitments when they may not be required to do that. We want to complete the comprehensive plan. We are calling it the comprehensive plan moving forward, but you've heard it as the master plan. This is just to reflect industry terminology, so we're rebranding, and as we move forward, we'll be calling it the comprehensive plan. So we're in the final stages. In a few more slides, I'll have much more on that, but that will be wrapping up soon, and then the big task will be implementing it and making sure that we are then making motion and actionable steps out of the strategies and goals that the community put forward in that plan. And then we want to refine procedures for inclusionary housing and the subsidized housing inventory. I know there's been a lot of attention on that in recent years, and as there should be, it's important and critical that we maintain that list. Subsidized housing inventory is a moving target, and we are doing our best to have some information that's clarified and kept up to date. I think historically, there has not been one specific person or division tasked with maintaining this. So as we move forward, we're taking ownership of that. We're working with the other staff that, in the finance department that have a role in this. And I'm asking, as I mentioned, the deputy director to work more closely with division heads. Particularly community development is one that that we're putting a focus on in the immediate future of looking at how can we refine procedures, how can we clarify and make improvements for this process. In terms of mid to long term, a zoning bylaw audit is something that we are working on, but as you might imagine, that takes some time. This is looking at, if you think about when the zoning bylaws were adopted, at one point, it was adopted in whole, and then over the years, it has been piecemealed together, updates, revisions, reorganizations, things that have been, redacted. So it becomes this patchwork quilt, and as you look at it in whole, sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes there are clerical errors, things that need to be updated. So we want to do an audit of that and identify what are those zoning bylaw updates. Zoning bylaw updates further in the list as well also includes the things that will come out of the initiatives, like the comprehensive plan may point to zoning bylaw changes that we want to make to unlock those goals. The earth removal bylaw committee will be focusing specifically on a piece of our zoning bylaw and may result in modifications that we're requesting. We have a small footprint housing initiative. This is something that we received a state grant for, and that is really the first item from the master plan, the comprehensive plan that we're looking to implement. We heard resounding across the board in our community engagement that housing is difficult to obtain. The costs are ever increasing, and there's limited options for people who either want to have a smaller home, downsize, start out in the neighborhood. So we're looking to work with a consultant to identify case studies and community areas in our town where it might be appropriate to introduce new zoning tools to allow more compact dwelling. And it's not necessarily tiny homes, it could be cottage-style homes. An example that I'll give you is the Birdsong neighborhood in Pine Hills, where you see these smaller footprint, clustered closer together. These, whether or not they're deed restricted for affordability, you find that they're more naturally affordable because they're smaller, their utility costs are less, and that we're seeing demand for this. That's something that we'll be looking at. We will be working with the town clerk on a zoning bylaw recodification. This is to transfer it to E-code. This was just done with the general bylaw, and it's only natural to follow with the zoning bylaw, make it more user-friendly. Right now, you have to keyword search through a PDF online, and if you go to the E-code system, it's so much more user-friendly. It really would be an improvement to do that. Subdivision rules and regulations, I want to work with the engineering department to take a look at what is outdated, what can we improve, are we consistent with our subdivision rules and regulations and what Public Works is asking for, and also things as simple as, maybe we can have improvements like stormwater-friendly infrastructure and things like that. I know that there's things that we can improve there, so we just need to do an analysis and find out what that is. Site plan review process, we do not have a clear, concise site plan review process in other communities that I've worked for. It's been much more clear-cut as to what projects are getting site plan review, whether it's administrative, going to the planning board, and what exactly the review criteria is. So I would like to clean that up and codify that, working with inspectional services. I would like to reinvigorate arts and culture initiatives. This is something that a former retired member of our division used to really focus on. And, it's more than just feel-good projects. It really is working with economic development, connecting with, whether it's the schools or small local artists. It's an opportunity to enhance planning and interface with the community that currently capacity limitations have sort of put that to the wayside. But in the long term, I really would like to get back into that sector. And then last but certainly not least is our economic development strategy, as we'll discuss in the master plan and subsequent conversations that are coming forward with this board. The state of the town and the economics that we see is changing. And so we see it now. We're sort of like on the horizon of we know that things will be changing. So what are we going to do now to make the changes to address that? And this is thinking about the growth that we see, growth projections, limited amount of developable land. We have had a lot of our growth carried by the residential Red Brook and the Pine Hills. A large amount, and I know the town manager has reviewed this with you recently, so as we know that growth is slowing, as we know that there's limited opportunity for new growth and development, what can we change to encourage economic development in areas that have infrastructure that makes sense? What can we do from our permitting and zoning to allow different types of development to take place? I think we need to do a holistic look at this and get ahead of it before it becomes problematic. I won't go over this in painstaking detail, but these just show you the fiscal year 26 select board goals that you have identified and the department's alignment. So there's multiple items under the Economic Development Business Center, under the protection of the environment, creating an efficient town government, and then also your long-term goals. So I have included this as well in the budget memo that's gone forward for this upcoming fiscal year's budget. And just to show you that a lot of the goals that I have just gone over really do stem from the work that you have done in setting goals for the community. So now I just want to make a quick pitch for the draft comprehensive plan, some key takeaways that we've seen The comprehensive plan is a roadmap for the next decade. The last one was done over 20 years ago, and much has changed since then. We're seeing new demographics, more than 10,000 more residents, 7,000 more housing units added between 2000 and 2020. There's been substantial development, whether it's at Colony Place or the two major master plan communities that we see, the closure of the power station, the nuclear power plant. All of these have had a tremendous impact on the character of the community and also change what we can see for our future growth potential moving forward. So there are new realities. As I mentioned, we're nearing build out. We have a slowing population growth, but we also have an aging population. So the demands on what the town needs and services they're changing. So we need to think for future planning, think about smart growth, changing service needs, and long-term fiscal sustainability. Really striking the development between something we heard loud and clear was that conservation of natural space and open space is very important to the community. At the same time, affordability is a major concern. People don't want to see their taxes increase. This community has never historically seen an override in their taxes. So how do you strike the balance of making sure that we're addressing both of those needs? It really takes careful planning and proactive thinking about this. Some of this that you'll see, there's central plan themes that come through every chapter of this draft plan that's advancing community affordability, integrating sustainability and resilience. And that is everything from sustainability is more than just green infrastructure. It's making sure that people are sustainable in their lifestyle here. Do they have a home? Are they able to afford the utilities? Are there groceries in, close proximity to their house? What is sustainable for someone to live? It's more than just thinking about, how can we be green? It's like, what do people need to live and thrive in a community and work and play? And then addressing public health, walkability, and well-being. So these are themes that you'll see woven throughout the plan. We have a virtual draft plan workshop coming up on Thursday, January 8th. It's at 6 p.m. It's via Zoom. It'll be a webinar style event where our consultants will walk through the plan, everything that they've heard, and go through each of the goals and the high level takeaways. We'll have an opportunity for Q&A at the end of that. And then we will also have a comment form and a survey open for anybody who either wants to think about it after the fact or wasn't able to attend, to give us some more feedback. And then after we wrap up this sort of draft phase of this plan, we'll be moving through a formal adoption with the planning board, coming to the select board, and really wrapping this up so that we can get to the implementation of those goals and strategies. So if anybody wants more information about this, you can find it on the master plan website. You can go to https://tinyurl.com/Plymouth-comp-plan. You'll find the information there. Anybody is also more than welcome to come into planning and development, send us an email, contact form. We're happy to direct you to find this information. So thank you. That was a lot of information, but now I want to hear from you.
Thank you, Ms. Lind. Other questions from the board? Mr. Canty?
So first, Lauren, I've said it before, but welcome. I've had an opportunity to work with you at the Master Plan Committee, and I think you've done a great job there, and I'm very confident that the Department of Planning and Development is in good hands. In terms of, I know obviously you're just coming on board, so you've got to and you're not starting from nothing because you've been working for us for a bit, but you do have to get your sea legs under you as planning director. But looking at your goals and priorities, your immediate and your mid and long-term goals, a few did stand out to me as things that you are doing, looking to do rather, that are important to my priorities and what I've ran on. And then there's some others that I think I've mentioned and advocated for before that I'd like to be just considered as you go forward, that I think are adjacent to the things you're already looking to do. So more specifically, in terms of immediate, you mentioned about updating permitting. So that's something that I've been looking to have happen, to streamline the permitting process and make it easier to navigate. You mentioned like this roadmap. I've been looking for something like that or something like a liaison if you were opening a business. So you have a person that you could talk to and they could tell you, oh, this is the next thing you have to do. You have to do this thing. You have to talk to that person, submit that thing. Because I think we have a reputation, some of it fairly earned, some of it unfairly, of being unfriendly and difficult to open and maintain a business in the community and conduct some regular stuff that is easier to do in other towns, which is unfortunate. And I think we have to acknowledge that and create a path forward for ourselves so that it's easier to do that. If we say we want economic development, which most of us say we want, making it easier for the people that are actually putting their capital on the line to open those things, I think is an important part of that step. So anything that could be done to make that easier, more friendly, user-friendly. Some people are used to opening businesses in other communities. Some people have never opened a business before anywhere. So different people are going to be in different places with it, but I think it could serve significant benefits. And also helping them navigate like the permitting and other regulatory processes that come along with that. And then in terms of mid and long term, you mentioned the zoning bylaw audit. I think that's very important. I think our zoning bylaw is very important to what this town looks like, not just as I'm seeing it through the master plan, but throughout my entire life, seeing the town change since I was growing up in West Plymouth and seeing the development there, the development around the old exit 5, the increased traffic there and everything. And a lot of that is because of how that zoning bylaw has been used or not used. You know, we wouldn't have Oasis if we had paid a little bit more heed to what that was zoned for and put something and said yes to something that was appropriate for the zoning as it existed prior to 40B saying, well, we'll just do this instead. And then for me, I think it's important in the medium to long term if we look at having a more of an emphasis on in-house economic development. Because obviously we have the foundation, we have other services that your department currently provides, but I think by having someone whose main charge is trying to implement that on a daily basis, because we are behind on economic development in Plymouth, I think, in terms of relieving the burden on residential taxpayers with attracting the right types of businesses. As you know from the master plan process, there's so many Plymouth residents that have to leave Plymouth in order to live here, and so many people that have to live elsewhere in order to work here. And that's not a very sustainable model, and that's something that I've been talking about for a while at this platform, and will continue to do so. But I'd like to see us have an emphasis on that going forward. But I like the things that you're looking at and thinking about, and I think that it's definitely the direction that the department really needs and that the town will really benefit from. So thank you for taking a critical look at things and moving forward in such a conscientious manner. Thank you. Ms. Iaquinto?
Thank you very much for that COVID time. We go way back to your consistent service. We take have a lot of things before I dive up on it. It's so great to see you in the small too. It really helped. Did an amazing job being on which was Shilo's to pledge. I mean, you always represent organized in the next sets. It made us drop ancient bonds along this. Just how much diverse things this engine it really almost touched almost every part was special. The government to reconciliation.
When we did turn it on,
I found the no, I didn't.
what did you do? You right.
Tell it if turn it.
For once, it's not a user problem. It usually is. But anyways, as I was saying, you really do have a lot of so much diverse activities and responsibilities in your group. So I was just curious, as you look to the future, are you thinking that you might add some things or reinforce some specific areas within your group? You don't have to get specific about it, but are you thinking about those terms, or in terms of, the future of your department and what it might look like 5 years from now? Is that something that you're going to be working on?
Yes, so that is something that I'd like to address. At this time, only having been as the director for less than a month, we have a lot of new staff, as I mentioned, so I really need to do an assessment of, like I said, finding a new normal. What are the strengths and weaknesses of the staff that we have? How can we maybe plug people into something that they're maybe not necessarily doing right now or not familiar with, or how can we best use the staff that we have before I'm ready to say, these are where our gaps are. But I am planning to do that assessment and I identify, where are the gaps that we have, where are the weaknesses, and how can we reinforce that? Is it through, a consultant service that we need in a part-time capacity, or is it something that's really more stable, we need a staff person for this? And I'm prepared to do that assessment, but I just need some time to get there.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I wasn't suggesting that. I just wanted to, I had a feeling that that was on your radar
Yes.
to look to the future and see what the department could look like and how it could support Plymouth better. As Mr. Canty said, I mean, we're all very much interested in economic development. And I know that we've had some, preliminary conversations about in-house economic development capabilities that would supplement what we get from the Plymouth Foundation. And I know we have something on our agenda coming up in a couple of weeks, so I hope that you'll also be part of that discussion. And
I will, yes.
be able to share ideas with you. Thank you.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes, so this is one of my favorite subjects, planning. The thing, I'll be quick about it, but I do come from a perspective, over the last 25 years, I engaged this town because of the planning process. I grew up in this town, I saw a rate of growth and development, I saw our cost of services reflected in that. I saw some of the strongest qualities of Plymouth disappearing, and that's what engaged me 25 years ago. And I've been watching this department for many years and seeing different department heads deal with the crisis that we were in. And I do see this department as one of the most important departments at Town Hall in terms of how we address growth and development in the future. You have the comprehensive plan that's coming into final stages. I've gone through the planning process a number of times and watched that planning process and seen the results of that planning process. The one thing that I have tried to make known during this planning process is that it's critical that when we're done doing the planning process, we look at that plan and then we start to look at our zoning bylaws and come up with the top 10 zoning bylaw changes that we should make to make that plan a reality. So too many times we spend quite a bit of time on the planning process and the plan is on a shelf. We're hoping that a petitioner coming before the town will pick up the plan and embrace it. But we need to incentivize the embracement, and that is through bylaw changes. So I think that when we finish the comprehensive plan, that we should have an addendum that shows the top 10 possible changes to our bylaws to make this comprehensive plan a reality. So that's one thing I think that should be on the radar of the planning department. But like I said, the planning department oversees quite a bit. And one of the things that I have noticed is that the staffing issues have always been a concern of mine. I think that what happens on a Wednesday night at a planning board meeting affects the bottom line of this town 2 or 3 years later. So obviously, when a petitioner comes before the town and wants to pull permits beyond the as-of-right capability of the property, that is something that we want to make sure that we have the adequate number of planners engaging that developer in a manner in which we have the best possible results. So it's an investment that controls the cost of services when you have the number of planners that you need to engage the developers who are coming forward, who are pulling permits. So I know you're going to reflect on that, because now that you're running this division, I wait to hear what your thoughts are about the staffing issues. You put it kind of interesting. You mentioned it as your status, the strengths and weaknesses of the staffing level. So I wait to hear from you on that. The other thing that I thought was very interesting in your presentation under your goals and guidelines is the idea of looking at making this process user-friendly to the residents of the town. When the town comes forward and people are looking to pull permits, that they have a comprehensive bylaws that they can go to and understand. But I also think that it would be nice at some point in the user-friendliness of Town Hall is to have somebody acting as a liaison in the planning department to help the people that come forward and ask questions of your department. So I hope your user-friendly strategy involves the human interaction touch also. The other thing, people have talked about housing as a critical point, and the affordability housing is the crisis. And I think that within the town of Plymouth, we have different entities working on housing, from the Housing Trust, from community development. These are entities. You noted the Plymouth Redevelopment Authority, kind of a quasi-separate public entity that we need to give it its space that it's designed to have, but it also can cross-pollinate with the town in terms of intensifying our ability to build affordable housing. So thinking about strategically aligning these entities to maximize the town's ability to respond to a housing crisis, that's something that I look forward to seeing how you address, because internally the town does have these entities working on housing. You noted the count on, SHI count, and we also saw that there was issues with conservation land being properly identified and moved into conservation land statuses. This all happens on a Wednesday night during the planning process when people are seeking permits. Obviously, during that period of time, there is a determination of how many affordable units will be provided for, what land might go into open space or be put into some protected status. So I look forward to seeing how you think those efforts are achieved more efficiently. So that's something that is of great interest. The other thing that I noticed is the Conservation Commission itself. And this is kind of my fourth point, is the Conservation Commission. I think this is a very important office, and obviously it hasn't been staffed at the level it could be and should be. I've noted it with my fellow board members and staff itself, my concerns since coming into office in May. I've been able to attend a lot of meetings in the evenings, one of them being Agricultural Committee, the Conservation Committee, and I did see that they were struggling with the lack of staffing that was there. Obviously, the staff person was out on sick leave, and as we start to reorganize in terms of that person's most likely permanent retirement, whatever status that might be, we need to address that issue where we have that gap in staff, because obviously the Conservation Commission has rules and regulations and laws that it has to follow in a timely manner. So I don't want to put the town at risk not having the proper people working on that issue. So I look forward to seeing how you address that issue. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I had a lot of fun with Robin Carver in the arts program, looking for opportunities. She was very energetic in assisting a group of us working on shrink wrapping electrical boxes in town. I still drive around Plymouth and I see electrical boxes, and I have all sorts of plans for them. So I look forward to hearing how that art program comes back into focus. But congratulations on your new appointment. Thank you very much for that presentation, and I commend you for taking on such an important role in a town growing as quickly as Plymouth. Thank you.
Mr. Quintel?
Welcome, Lauren. The board's touched on a lot of the things that I was going to bring up, and, I'm not expecting all kinds of answers and creations tonight, but I am concerned because myself, I feel that you need more staff in your office. And budgets being what they are, I'm still going to advocate for that if I can find a place to scratch something, because I really think that for you to be really successful and meet demands, when I say ours, the towns, you're going to need some more staff. I mean, you got the same staff you had 20 years ago when Jack Lennox was here. So that I know. Commercial revenue, is down. You've heard that on the tax base. So I'd like to look at, it was really my hope to have somebody working on economic development pretty much alone in your office, under you. So take away what you can, and you're going to get your report. I'd like to see a joint force with the foundation meeting a little bit more, and I don't mean with us with a kumbaya and everybody likes everybody, but real serious business. I think the town and the foundation have to work really close on, and bring us some proposals rather than waiting like Plymouth always does for somebody to, and it's to no one's fault, but I'm just going to throw a few things out there quickly because I don't want to be here all night, but I said it at town meeting once, that, over where Landers is or Edwards, where they've removed the sand, some people call it sand mining, whatever you choose to call it, where the topography is very low there. I think that would be an opportune area to increase the heights. And why do I say that? Because there's a lot of places that actually look for that, and there's no neighbors. We have 44, we have Route 3, you can get everywhere from there. So it's just my thought, and, I don't know, like CPC will send out letters to homeowners or people that have beachfront property if they ever want to sell, to look at the town. Maybe the town can send out letters or look at, when you have time, well, maybe you don't think it's a good idea, and that's your prerogative, to send letters out to them for rezoning. I know Bill touched about it. The last 7, 8 years, I haven't seen many zoning changes at all in town, if any, to be honest with you. Back in the day, we used to go with 5, 6 every town meeting. And I don't know what's the reason for that, I sit at this board. So I'd like to see something like that in an area like that, which would only increase the value for if and when they're ready to sell. So that's my thought on that. And then, I don't know if you know this answer or not, but the promotion fund on the hotel motel tax,
Yes.
do you know if that's coming down with the rest of the economy?
I'm actually waiting to get that figure
Are you waiting?
momentarily within the next
Okay,
few
I
days.
didn't-
Yes.
I didn't expect you, but I thought maybe it was in, so I'm just curious. I'm not expecting it to be up, that's for sure, but.
It will be in shortly. That's usually a figure. We put a placeholder in the town warrant for a sum of money, and we wait until the calendar year closes to be able to update that. So usually by the first or second week in January is when Lee would update that memo to finalize that figure for the warrant. So I'll have that to you shortly.
Okay, and I think you got the gist of it. I've talked to you a little bit here and there, and I wish you the best, and if I can ever support you in any way, but definitely, I think you need more staff, and I'll advocate for that regardless of the budget, because we're not going to make things happen without having it. So it's time we face up to it, get our priorities straight, and go from there. Because otherwise, you're not going to be successful. None of us are going to be successful. I mean, we got another year or two on the tax rate. Look at what it is and where we are. The levy, I mean, that's still in play right now, but I think it's 1.9 left in the levy. Oh, we're going to take it. We haven't really got there yet, but that's what we have left to work with. And the taxpayers are suffering. So it's time to move and stay concentrated, not give the house away, but I think we can be very creative and this is Plymouth. And as far as businesses coming to town, I can tell you, I moved here in 2000 from Kingston. Kingston's a great town to do business in, and so is Plymouth. But a lot of the times, it's what can the businesses do for the town? I do a lot for the town, and I'm not patting myself on the back. Everybody should do something to give back to their community because it comes back to you. So, and that's it for me. Thank you. Good luck and bless you.
Anything else from the board? Lauren, thank you for being here tonight. And I would say that I particularly appreciate the eye that you have towards reducing some of the red tape that folks experience when they come into town hall. I'm very much looking forward to seeing progress in that area. I would echo my colleagues' comments about economic development. I think when we have our joint meeting with the planning board and the foundation on the 20th, we'll dive more deeply into that. But I would support a lot of the comments that were made here towards making sure that this community is really focused on developing our commercial industrial tax base. Any other comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yeah. Our next agenda item is an update on select board policies and procedures. This process started, I think in June, when Mr. Canty and I started looking at the select board policies and procedures document. We continued this work in our workshop in the fall. Ms. Iquinto is going to walk us through some of the changes that we're proposing here tonight. And then if it's the pleasure of the board, we will adopt such policies. You can go wherever you want. It's probably easier if you're up at the podium.
Yes, so the Select Board policies and procedures have been a true labor of love. We've worked on them for a number of months, and we've gone through 3 rounds of review and revision. And if you, I have the clicker here. So we really didn't make any material changes to the purpose or intent of this document. We revised some of the language for consistency and clarity, added context as needed. We ensured alignment with current practices. The draft we were working from was from 1998, so there had been quite a few procedures that had kind of evolved over time, so we just updated it to make sure that everything, what we were doing actually matched what was in the document. We didn't really touch any of the major policies, the role, our ethics, the way we're organized, our overall responsibilities. Meeting procedures stayed the same, relations with other town boards and committees, with citizens and hearings. None of that stuff really changed in any material way. We did have a few recommended additions, and I just wanted to read through them here because these next 5 pages, 5 areas, are things that we haven't really discussed as a board or, had any formal approval as a team of 5. So I just wanted to make sure that there were no questions on them and that we were good to go on each of them. So the first one under procedure for establishing policies and procedures, which is a bit redundant, but that's what it says. It says, in general, the board shall not vote on a new procedural rule or policy at the same meeting it is first introduced unless prompt action is necessary. In that case, the board must unanimously vote to adopt the policy and procedure at the same meeting. Questions, comments, edits? Nope. Looks good.
Deb. So on 2.15, page 5 of 10.
I don't have that document with
pardon me?
me. I don't have that document with me. I was just going through the
Okay,
slides.
I'm sorry. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought we were going
Yeah.
to do this. All right.
Yeah.
No
you can-
questions.
So I just wanted to focus on
Okay.
the language that we hadn't discussed and approved yet. But if we're good with that, I'm going to move on. And Jade, we can assume that silence is acceptance. Okay.
Before we move on, that's not in this document that we have, right?
Yeah. No, that's it.
Where is this being inserted?
So it's under 2.2 on page 1 of 10.
Oh, there it is.
It's the last paragraph.
Oh, yes, 1 of 10. Yep, we have that.
In general, I think we should do majority votes for anything. I'm not sure why we would not want to do. I think this language is a little wishy-washy, to be honest. This is in general, which leaves us open to say, well, this case is not the general case. And then it makes a requirement for a unanimous vote. I'm not sure that the purpose of us being a 5-member board is that the majority rules. And so I would suggest that this language is not necessary, but I defer to my colleagues.
To strike the entire section?
Yeah, I mean, if there's a policy that we want to adopt, what does it matter if we vote? Like, for example, we wouldn't be able to adopt this policy here tonight. We would have to then postpone it to a future meeting to go to adoption.
This is not the first time this policy has been proposed.
Right,
This was talked about at the workshop.
No, I understand that. But I think it's fair to say that we can still make changes here tonight.
Oh,
yes.
no, absolutely, but it did, yeah, it just, this is what we had talked about adding in our workshop, but that doesn't mean that we can't make changes to it. That is the purpose of why we're here tonight. We
Yeah.
just really want to wrap this thing up and
Right.
put it to bed.
Well, sorry.
Mr. Cohen?
The first, it says unless prompt action is necessary. Obviously, that's in there. Correct, for a purpose.
Yep.
Right, but in that case, we need a unanimous vote.
So why wouldn't it just be just a majority? Would you be satisfied a majority vote?
Yeah, I mean, but if we do that, then there's no reason to even have this language, I guess.
I disagree, because it's setting a general standard that, in general, the board will not do this unless prompt action is necessary. If prompt action is necessary, in that case, the board must unanimously vote. So the unanimous vote would be prima facie evidence that prompt action was necessary. And I think when you establish policies and procedures, you want them to be something that is long-lasting and not something that ebbs and flows with the tenor of a given evening. And I think that's the cooling-off period that's suggested by the general principle of, if we're going to change a policy that we're going to then be beholden on for years, because the board has been beholden to these policies for a generation, that it would require first a presentation on it, then contemplation of it between that meeting and the next meeting, and then action, unless the entire board thought it was so important that we act on it immediately. I think that it's a responsible compromise between, and making sure that the policies and procedures are in place in general, as opposed to adapting to meet a specific one-time situation.
Sure, but if four of us think that it's important enough, we're going to be at the whim of a single person in that
Correct.
case, and I'm not sure that that's in the best interest of the town.
I think it is, personally, because I think it sets a standard that we should be creating policies that are going to be applied in a way that's fair and equitable throughout, generally, and that we would only deviate from that in something that everybody would agree requires immediate deviation. So I think having a unanimous vote is a safety valve from a one-time issue taking over our policies and procedures in a way that the collateral consequences of which may not be contemplated at that time.
Go ahead, Mr. Cohen.
Yeah, but if someone did oppose that action, you would just put it on the agenda and you'd come back and have a vote in the majority rules.
Yes, correct.
There's the recourse.
Correct.
There's the balance to that.
Right, you can have a meeting in 48 hours to do the thing.
Yeah, that was the discussion we had
Right.
back in October, too.
Right.
And I
Not
think
super efficient to call a meeting 2 days later to vote on a policy that
So
we can do in a single.
Right, but I would say that it's not particularly responsible to have our longstanding policies and procedures adjusted at a whim for one evening.
But you've done that in the past.
I have not.
Yeah, you absolutely have. We
I
have
have
as a
not.
board. This board has done that.
I have not.
I take issue with that statement.
So
but
what are we going
You
to do
may.
going forward, gentlemen?
I'm comfortable with how you have it. I think that we want to be flexible in a circumstance that requires it. And if for some reason, as Mr. Golden indicated, that, if one person stood in the way, you have recourse at the next meeting or some other way. I think it does maintain a level of flexibility with the board. So I think that, the language you have would work for now.
Okay.
I think we're choking ourselves with policy, but I've clearly been outvoted here, so we can move on.
Okay. All right, good. So that one was easy. The next one, this was a new section. This was about the adding something about board member complaint review process, and we agreed that we would rely on the Mass General Law, Chapter 30. That should be 30A. There's a typo in there. It should be Chapter 30A, Section 21. And the complaints about or against a board member will be addressed in accordance with that Mass General Law. And that really just is an overview of using executive session to discuss personnel disciplinary issues and what the rights of the individual might be. So anyone can go look that up, but that was the language that we had agreed to put in there back in October. Are we still good with that? Okay. Yes, yeah, okay. Just give me a thumbs up, anything. Thumbs up is good. All right. Okay, thanks. We're almost through this. We almost have policies and procedures. Okay. We added a new section on workshop meetings, just to make this clearer that we are allowed to do this. So in accordance with open meeting law, the board may conduct informal workshops from time to time as the situation warrants. At such meetings, no official action will be taken. Good, thumbs up. Okay, got one thumbs up. Okay, good, thank you, thank you. All right, now okay, so this is the one. This is our agenda procedures. So I know we've had a lot of discussion about this, so hopefully we can come to some agreement here and put this one to rest. I'll just read it. When a board member requests an agenda item, it will be assigned a date within 2 weeks. All requested items will be scheduled for a meeting within 60 days of the original request. As an example, a December 1st request is assigned by December 14th and heard no later than January 28th. The original language that is highlighted here in yellow, this timeline may be extended with the consent of the requesting board member. The requesting board member will be included in shaping the scope and format of the discussion. In conversations with Mr. Golden, we are offering an alternative to the yellow highlighted information up there, and the alternative reads, this timeline may be extended by majority vote of the board. So rather than the original intent, which was just to have a conversation with the requesting board member, the alternative would be to have a majority vote of the board to change the timeline. So I guess it's open for discussion.
Mr. Canty?
So I think the highlighted language is superior. I think that gives each board member an opportunity to have their issues heard within I think 60 days after making a request is a reasonable period of time for that item to be heard by the board. And I think giving the consent, making a requirement of an extension of that, the consent of the requesting board member is a reasonable compromise so that no one board member could be shut out or postponed indefinitely by a majority of others. I think that every member is a duly elected member of the board, and there's been a lot of discussion about that. And if we're going to live up to those expectations that have been set, then the original language that you proposed, I think, is the superior way to accomplish that. Obviously, if a board member presents something that none of his or her colleagues agrees with, the remedy there will be that whatever they're seeking to do will not get supported by their colleagues. So I think that's the remedy for items being put on that are not a good idea or not fully thought through. I think there's a remedy on the back end there. But I think trying to give everybody the opportunity to have their items heard in a reasonable period of time is accomplished by the text you've proposed. So I intend to support the highlighted version of the text.
Other thoughts on the alternative? I would say that I think that there are some considerations that need to be made for folks to get their items on the agenda. However, there are also at times, I think, reasonable reasons to delay an agenda item because other work is being done, not in, that will not permit the agenda to be fully fleshed out within that 60-day time frame. And so I would like to give the board the decision as to whether or not extension is made, because someone could reasonably request 30 items and say, within 60 days, I need all of these items to be addressed. The board has other work to do. And so if we adopt this policy by saying we have to have the requesting board members' consent, we're going to let that person dominate the agenda. So I'd rather give the board the decision. If an agenda item needs to be delayed, let the board make that decision.
Other thoughts?
Reasonable. Yeah.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes, I think that the example that you point out requires us to build into some flexibility here that, as you suggested, that we would come back to the board and the board would make a determination.
Mr. Quintel?
Yeah.
You prefer the alternative language? Okay. Okay.
Would you like a vote of the board on the alternative language?
Well, presumably we're going to vote on all of this, right?
Yeah, but I think the way it's presented to us is with the highlighted text.
Correct.
So we would need to do this as amended. So I'd feel more comfortable with a vote, adopting the alternative text, and then the final motion would be to adopt the policy
The
as
policy
amended.
as a package. Yeah. Okay.
Would anyone care to make the motion to adopt the alternative language for this section?
I'll make the motion to adopt the alternative language for this section of the,
Policies and procedures.
correct.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cohen makes the motion, Mr. Quintel seconds. Discussion? Mr. Canty?
So I think while there could be a situation where somebody requested on December 1st, 30 items, which would be quite a lot, I would think if something hasn't been fleshed out fully to be heard, then the person making that request would consent to a continuance. And I think that item being fleshed out and worked upon, the requesting board member should be involved in that process and would be aware of what's necessary to bring that forward. And he or she would not want their item put on before it was ready for prime time, so to speak. I think that the modified text creates a situation where you could have a tyranny of the majority, where you could have 3 or 4 members that box out 1 or 2 members from ever hearing any of their items, by just delaying it for reasons known only to them. It would require it to be done in public, so it would be very apparent over time to members of the community that that conduct is occurring. But it is a significant potential collateral consequence of modifying it as suggested. So I will vote no on the amendment in hopes that the unamended original suggestion were to be implemented were that vote to fail.
Ms. Iaquinto?
May I comment from you?
Yeah.
So I am sincerely hoping that this is the exception and not the rule, and that we don't have to look at this and decide how we want to extend the timeline. So I actually am comfortable with either one of these at this point, because I can't imagine with all of this discussion that we've had about the agenda and we've laid out a process with some rigid timelines here, that we would be running into a situation where the timeline had to be extended, on a regular basis. That would be my hope, my expectation. So I am actually comfortable with either one of them.
With what?
I mean, I'm comfortable either way.
Okay. Other discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the roll. Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Quintel?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
No.
And myself, yes. All right, so we will adopt the alternative language.
Okay. All right, great. So we'll replace that language, and we've all agreed. And so the very last one, and this was something that Mr. Cohen and I actually had requested that you all consider, because as newly elected members of the Select Board, the email protocol was very confusing to a first-time person on the Select Board. So for future Select Board members who might be joining and experiencing the same level of confusion, we just requested that we add this language. So in keeping with open meeting law, members of the Select Board will not reply to all when responding to email correspondence directed to the entire board. Each member may respond individually to the sender if he or she so desires. In general, emails directed to the board that are related to operational issues and resident complaints will be handled by staff and directed to the appropriate department for timely response. Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought that just happened automatically. So is that good? Okay, great, awesome, excellent. And that is it. Everything else should be pretty straightforward. You have all the information there. The only thing that was left for us to decide on were the 5 things that we just discussed. So I think we're good.
Very good. So I'll be looking for a motion to amend, a motion to adopt the Select Board policies and procedures as amended here tonight. And just for clarity's sake, the amendments came under 2.7, which is on page 3 out of 10. There was a scrivener's error that will be corrected. It'll be Chapter 30A, Section 21. We also adopted the alternative language under 2.15. And I think that's it, unless there are there any other amendments that folks want to make to this? Mr. Canty?
There's nothing that I wanted to make, but there was an addition of it's a little pedantic, but there's an addition of the word will under 2.6 on page 2 of 10. Just if we're highlighting, I assume it's non-controversial.
Yeah.
But just for,
Yeah, it happened a couple of times, but
yeah, I noticed, yeah.
yeah, I don't think it's,
There's a couple minor words that are added that don't change the substantive meaning.
right. I think it was just making an operative word. Anything else? All right, well, I will seek that motion to amend.
I'll make a motion that, to amend,
Excuse me, adopt.
adopt the Select Board policies and procedures with the amendments in 2.6, 2.7, and 2.5.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Cohen makes the motion, Ms. Iaquinto seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the roll. Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Quintel?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
And myself, yes, is unanimous. All right. We'll move on to the town manager's report. Mr. Brindisi?
Good evening. I don't have a full-time manager's report tonight because I just want to talk about something very important relative to the budget. But before I do that, I do want to recognize Scott Ludwig. Scott Ludwig just retired from the town of Plymouth. He was the town surveyor for the last 3 years and 6 months. So I wish Scott well in his retirement. Although he was with us for a short period of time, his position as a town surveyor was extremely important and he did the town well in the 3 years he was with us. So I came to the podium this evening because, as you know, 2 weeks ago, I did a budget presentation and talked a lot about, some of the major budget drivers, in particular health insurance. And so, after that budget presentation, since that budget presentation, I've been working with the finance department to go through the numbers a little bit more. And unfortunately, I'm here to report that the budget is not getting better. It's actually getting worse. We found that we need an additional $1.1 million to cover what I had mentioned last time as this ever-increasing health insurance problem. And I had mentioned 2 weeks ago that, we heard from the CEO of BID that their health insurance went up by 30%, their premiums, and ours is now rising up over 14%. So we now have a $1.1 million budget shortfall that we have to cover. At the beginning of the budget presentation, in reference this evening by Mr. Quinto, we have approximately $1.9 million of excess levy capacity. I had proposed to use approximately $900,000 of that in the first budget presentation. Given this new deficit, I am proposing to use an additional $700,000 of our excess levy capacity in order to help fill that gap. And the remaining $400,000 would come from what is our $2.6 million roads budget. So we'd reduce the roads budget down to $2.2 million, and we would reduce what is now the $1 million of excess levy capacity by a number of $700 down to $300,000. In addition to that, I just wanted to mention that part of the initial round of budget cuts, in order to balance the budget, we did have to freeze 2 positions or unfund 2 positions in the DPW. So those 2 positions will not be funded effective July 1st. In addition to that, as you know, I've talked to all of you individually about what we're trying to do to reverse this health insurance problem. We're meeting with health insurance consultants as we speak. We have a number of meetings coming up next week to try to determine what we can do to try to mitigate our health insurance problem. But until we can get a solution around that, I am proposing to institute a hiring freeze effective January 1st. It's going to focus mostly on administrative and clerical staff. As we all know, we need to fill the rank and file in our public safety departments. And Public Works, we need to fill those positions. We have right now a number of Public Works vacancies. That's a very difficult department to fill vacancies. We have very specialized licenses that were required with those employees. So we're going to continue to advertise for those positions at DPW, Fire, and Police. But any new positions that are either now unfilled on the administrative or clerical level, or may become vacant over the course of the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to go without, and we're just going to have to live within those means until we can figure out a long-term solution around health insurance. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I do want to remind you that next week I'll be asking for the select board to take a vote on the budget recommendation. Certainly, if any board members have any questions, reach out to myself, our Director of Finance, Lynn Barrett, or if you want to meet specifically with each and any one of our department heads to learn more about their detailed budget, I'm happy to arrange those meetings. So pending any questions, that's all I have this evening.
Mr. Canty?
So Derek, for clarity of those viewing from home, so you're seeking a hiring freeze through attrition, save money on the budget, but you're not looking to lay off any employees?
No, we are not. We are not even having layoff conversations. So, but thanks for the clarity. We're looking to institute a hiring freeze for clerical administrative positions if they were to become vacant. So, if one of our clerks were to leave and go to a different place of employment, that position will be held frozen until we can figure out this long-term budgetary problem. Now, in saying all that, our departments do need to function,
Right.
and if departments get to a level where they cannot provide proper services, we will go ahead and fill those administrative and clerical staff positions.
Right, but wherever you could maintain an attrition loss, either through someone quitting or someone retiring, the intention would be to do that for the 6 to 12 month period that
That's
you
right.
outlined.
That's right.
Okay, and the conversations about healthcare are ongoing?
So we met, like I mentioned last time, we have already met with a healthcare consultant once already. We have 2 meetings coming up next week with another insurance provider. In addition to that, we have a meeting coming up to talk about the GLP-1, which I mentioned, is right now, when I had presented the budget, we were tracking about $3 million in costs to the town regarding the GLP-1 drug. That is growing based upon new trends. It could be pushing towards $4 million. So we're trying to get a handle on the areas that we can get a handle on.
Right.
At the same time, we'll be exploring other programs such as co-payments, deductibles, premium splits, and any other plan design changes that we could bring to the unions. As you know, this would have to be negotiated.
Right.
But we want to do our research first. We want to have the information that we think is important, and then, seek the union support in reopening the PEC, which is really a health insurance agreement for employees. But right now, we're kind of in a fact-finding mission at this point.
Right, I appreciate that, and I know with that one particular drug being so expensive, and I know a lot of other insurance carriers are dropping coverage of that due to that expense for non-medically necessary applications of that drug. So I'm hopeful that at a minimum, that can be adopted, because that in and of itself would be a significant savings. But I think there are other opportunities as well that I know you will continue to pursue, but I think are important to highlight the need and necessity for, given the fiscal constraints that we're under.
At this point, health insurance is my number one priority.
Yes, and it's quickly becoming one of our number one expenses. So
That's right.
thank you.
Mr. Cohen?
Again, the hiring freeze is, as so clerical positions that become available, they wouldn't hire. So obviously, we just had a conversation about the conservation agent for the town. That person it's undetermined whether or not that person is still out on medical leave or will retire. Will that position be filled if he?
Yeah, I mean, that is a regulatory position. That is a position we
okay.
absolutely do
So we're
need,
not,
yes.
okay. All right, good, thank you.
Hi, Derek.
Mental?
I reached out to the Insurance Advisory Committee prior to tonight, after it was brought up a couple weeks ago. And I'm sure it'll be discussed at the next IAC meeting, which is monthly. And hopefully we come up with something by July. I'll keep you informed as to any progress and any suggestions you might have. Be more than happy to carry them forward. But I have to say that we look at the budget we have, because I'm not in favor of using any of the levy unless we really have to. So if we got stuff we're funding or setting aside for town meeting, like nuclear mitigation fund, that, I'd vote that right out in a second.
Sure.
I've never supported it, and this will not be the year, and next year will even be worse. So there's a lot to this picture, and why I'm always talking about economic development. We have all the workforce opening their contracts in the next year or so. So here we are with a budget with pretty much no money. And, so what do we say to the workforce? I just hope we don't go back to where we used to be and, balance it on the health insurance with no raises. A lot of the reason that you have the percentages and health insurance that you have in this town is because it's been bargained in the past to keep it the same. So it's not like the town gave the house away, and unless you know pretty much every contract, what was, bargained, there's a lot more to it.
Right.
So I'm not saying not to look at it, I'm just saying, let's look at it, but let's do it the right way. So everybody's informed, and, I had people asking me Saturday, at work in this building, it was either Saturday or Sunday, what's with our healthcare, Mr. Quintal? I said, just relax, we haven't got there yet, you have contracts with it. It's not something we just do at this table. So I hope we look at a lot of things, and I definitely support a hiring freeze. I'm all in on that. But if you needed to hire somebody at your discretion, you would do that, right?
Yeah, we work.
It doesn't tie your hands if.
No, I would work directly with the department head. We'd
Okay.
we'd do an analysis of their operations, and like I mentioned, if we can't maintain services through
Right.
that department, then we'd be forced to hire that position.
We had a short conversation today, but I want to look at other things like, do we have departments in town that we can do away with or, privatize? We have to look at a lot of things going forward.
Right.
Maintenance, there's a lot of programs to look at, and maybe it's time that, we outsource some of them if we can. So.
Yeah, I definitely think we're entering a possibility of a new way of doing business. Outsourcing could be
Right.
one of those solutions, but, my timeline is we're going to start building the FY '28 budget in 10 months
Right.
from today.
Right.
So we have less than 10 months to try to unravel some of
I know.
our financial issues. And then in 12 months from today, we're going to be entering collective bargaining. So we have a lot of work to do over the next 10 to 12 months, and so that we can work with the unions on, future raises.
So I'm available anytime, pretty much, if there's anything I can do anywhere. I'm more than committed to try to help and make this as less painful as possible.
Thank
As
you.
I'm sure everybody is, with their ideas and whatnot, so. I've been through this before, so it's even worse if it's a 9C cut. That's when you're in the middle of the budget.
Right,
It was 5 million one year with that.
done that.
Mr. Canty?
So I'd be hard pressed to personally support privatizing an existing town department. I think that there are some operations that are short-term in the town that privatization might make sense in terms of not onboarding someone else or being able to deal with a situation that's a temporary situation with temporary privatization. But in my experience, when you privatize a recurring need in the town, you are paying not just for that service, but you're also paying the profit margins of whatever entity is providing that service on behalf of the community rather than the public department that does it. And often, because they're trying to be competitive and come in under what it would cost for a town employee or town employees to do it, the way they make their profit is by just doing the service worse. And I think that when we're framing the budget, it's a very challenging time in a season that's been, or a trio of years that have been challenging times. And I think we've been successful in the past in articulating what the budget does for people. And I think that it's important that we keep that narrative going about how what you're paying for is the services that you and the people you care about, your neighbors, are consuming. You may not have a kid in schools, but kids are in your neighborhood. You may not use the library, but the old lady down the street does. You may never call the police, but you may need to tomorrow. Things of that nature, and articulating what these town departments are doing for us and for the residents, so that because I know the tax bill is tough, and I know that given the affordability crisis we're seeing throughout the entire country, and in not just this country, in other countries in the world, cost of living is a significant current event issue right now, which I am very sensitive to. But this town is only providing really basic, like middle-class services to folks. We're not doing like all the bells and whistles and doing things up better than they need to be. We're providing a pretty standard level. I think we're doing a good job in it. People are working hard to do it. There's a lot of challenges with the size of this community and the different needs we have in a community with urban, suburban, rural areas over a huge footprint. But just because the budget is high, doesn't mean there's a lot of fat in it, doesn't mean that there's a lot of waste in it. And I think having the narrative be about what people's tax bill is funding, what that budget is doing for them, is very important, so that we don't lose track of these important functions of the community that maybe not every individual is relying on, but we as a community are relying on. So I just wanted to say that.
Mr. Quintel?
With all due respect, Mr. Canty, I haven't really looked at any department or any service. I just was putting it out there, and I intend to look at all the rocks here. Because I know you live in North Plymouth now, so if you'd like to go down to 3A and have breakfast with me Saturday, I'll treat you. And I want you to sit there, like I did this past week, and listen to the customers in there about their tax bill. The first question out of their mouth, tell me my taxes aren't going up. So we can either do status quo, the writing's on the wall, you have X amount of dollars. Do you honestly think that 1.9 million in new tax levy is going to get us through the next couple of years?
I mean, I'm deeply concerned as well about going down to just $300,000 in excess levy capacity. I think that that we're now one unforeseen expense away from an override discussion. And I don't think that there's any appetite for that in the community. I appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Canty, about the importance of the services that are being paid for by the taxpayers, but that's easy for the five of us to say. We can afford it. There are people out there who can't. And so we have to be mindful of the fact that, while they may be basic services in some regard, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I work in communities across New England, and we certainly provide services well and above what most communities are providing to their citizens. Could we be providing more? Yes. Can we afford that? No. I think we have to really start thinking about how we can be creative with the FY28 budget. If we're going to go down to essentially nothing, we're going to be taxing our taxpayers, our residential and commercial taxpayers to the max. We're going to tell them that we're going to take every single penny out of you that we can. That does not promote business growth in town. That doesn't make it more affordable for someone to buy in this community. It doesn't make it easier for someone who grew up here to be able to buy a home. We all talked about affordability in our campaigns, but what are we doing about it? If we're going to just keep being little piggies and grabbing every penny, then it was just empty words. So I really think that we need to get creative beyond just looking at, and I agree with Mr. Quintal, I think we should start looking at some privatization opportunities, because although you do pay the profit for the organization, they often can do it cheaper than we can, and they can do it better than we do because it's their business model. And so, I reject the fact that the statement that they do services worse than us. I think if we have to vet the organizations as the executive body for the community. We have to be the ones to decide whether or not an organization is going to be able to do the job up to snuff. And frankly, I think we've done a poor job at that as a board in the past. Just look down at what's happening on Water Street. We're reopening that again. So, I think it's on us to make sure that if we do move services to a privatized model, that we're truly vetting these groups and saying yes with certainty. I think they can do the job better than we can. But I think we have to go beyond that. I think we have to start looking at non-monetary items to include in our negotiations, and we'll talk about that as we go forward. But increasingly, like, my generation cares more about flexibility than they do about pay raises. Like, can we start thinking about some remote options, some more flexible options for working class folks who might be happy with the pay and benefits that they're getting here, and certainly would be happy with a raise. But if you can make it easier for someone to be able to raise a family while working in town hall, I think you'll find a really excellent workforce. So, Mr. Quintal's right. We can't balance the budget on the back of our workforce, but there are ways that we can satisfy everyone in this process. So I would echo Mr. Quintal's offer. Anything that I can do to help, please let me know.
Could I just, you just made me think of something you touched on, even like I brought it up at town meeting also, a 4-day work week. Some people laugh about that, some don't. And this building here is open Monday through Thursday, regular hours, or Tuesday extended hours with a half a day on Friday. Do you honestly think that much work is getting done in this building on Friday in 3 or 4 hours? I mean, I don't believe so. So I'm sorry. But where I'm going with the story, I'm not saying nobody's not working, but I'm saying to what you were talking about, even in teaching negotiations, the last 2 sets of contracts, it's about time. It wasn't really the money, it was the time that they were looking for. And I think if you have a little extended day, I think it's a good idea. I even heard Mr. Coyle said he could do his department in a 4-day work week.
Right.
So, I mean, it's something, what I was trying to say is, I'm not saying let's privatize anything. I'm saying, let's look at what we're doing, what we're having trouble filling, and there are positions in this building that we haven't filled in 3 years. The divisions, DPW, mechanics is another one. That's just to name a few, so that's all. Just
Yeah.
saying to look.
And I don't think we're talking about getting rid of people.
No,
We're talking about
no.
supplementing what we have.
Right.
Mr. Cohen?
Did you want to go first? I think you had your hand up.
Ms. Iaquinta?
So I mean, lots of great ideas here, and I think we're at the point where we really have to look at everything and approach it with no preconceived ideas on whether it's going to work or not. We need to lay everything out on the table. Is privatization going to work in some areas, maybe not in others? Where might it work? Where does it make sense to, restructure our total comp package, and make it more of a, go back to my consulting days, we used to call it total rewards. There were 4 quadrants, and they were all balanced out, so work environment and learning and development was all part of it, but that's important to people. So, I think we have an opportunity in this challenging time to be really creative and maybe come up with some really interesting ways to run our business more effectively and efficiently. I did want to just say with the healthcare issue, people are kind of scratching their heads out there saying, why didn't we know about this? Why didn't we know about this budget issue? Well, this is an issue that's impacting employers across the country. Nobody expected the rate increases that we are seeing. That could not be anticipated. But I do think that whatever decisions we make today, we need to make with the future in mind, so that we're not just making short-term solutions to put our finger in the dam and stop the water from coming through. But we really need to think about the long-term implications, because I think I'm not being critical of the past, but some of the reasons why we're here are because of decisions that were made without that kind of forethought to what could happen 10, 15, 20 years from now. Some of it can't be predicted, but some of it, with really thoughtful, we've got a lot of really smart people in this town, and if we come together and really put our heads together and don't dismiss anything, any idea, without first vetting it to see if it would work. So,
Good points.
So I guess the town of Plymouth has gone from one financial crisis to another. It really is a town always, reacting to what is being put upon it. And what is put upon it is unusual in terms of the level of growth and development, the services that we have to bring to people. So services are critically important. Obviously, Plymouth has had a tradition of a bare bones operation. But with time to time, we need to reflect on how effective are we bringing those services, and can we look at other ways of controlling the cost of services? I often talk about zoning. Tonight, we had a presentation from the planning department in terms of growth and development in zoning and how we grow in a way that allows us to bring services effectively to the residents without taxes going higher. Earlier tonight, we talked about our policies and procedures, and there's a section in there about a workshop that we should time to time have a workshop. I think that we should dedicate a workshop to this subject matter of how we, as five, can work together in determining different ways of looking at the circumstance to address, as staff looks at different ways of finding the financial resources to manage the circumstance. We should be setting a time, an evening, where we're doing a workshop looking at how we could approach this in a different way. I don't know what people's schedules look like in terms of the agendas in the future, where a workshop might fit in, but I believe time is of the essence that we have a workshop to specifically examine this circumstances and different options that we could respond to.
Mr. Canty?
So I think a workshop could be a good idea about it. I think that personally for me, I just think when you talk to people, they're concerned about their taxes, yes. When you go through what the town provides them in services, it's hard for them to identify something they'd like to do without in the community. And I think the way out is not by layoffs, it's not by closing a department or curtailing a department in a significant way. I think the way out is through economic smart economic development. I think that's always been the way out because we don't have as much of a commercial base as we could. Smart economic development would bring more jobs into the community that people could afford to live here and work here, which is a big quality of life issue. It would make it easier for everybody, regardless of whether they're working or not, to continue to live here. And I think that a lot of the present cost of living issues that we're facing are bigger than Massachusetts state law and Proposition 2.5. It's the global cost of, you can't have years of higher than 2.5% inflation compounding on years of prior higher than 2.5 inflation and not expect to at some point come up against the ceiling imposed by Proposition 2.5. So we can't cut, if we cut taxes, if we cut services rather, all we would be doing is buying more runway out ahead of us. We'd still get to the end of it eventually. And on the way there, we'd just have a worse town. I think the way that we can get out of it, the only way we can get out of it is by smart, balanced economic development. That's always been, I think, the solution. And I think spending time on that, whether that is in a workshop or whether that's part of our meeting with the Planning Board and the Economic Development Foundation on the 20th, that to me is the way out. Because it not only does it provide better tax revenue at a lower cost, but it also provides things that the comprehensive plan process is showing that people want more high-paying jobs in Plymouth. That's the solution people have been looking for years. To me, that's the best way forward because I would be hard-pressed to identify a service that we should either stop or significantly curtail because there's services that I don't consume, but I don't complain about having to pay for them because I know that other people depend on them. And certain people depend on some services a great deal. And I think everybody is in a different place with it. So to me, economic development is the way out. Other solutions may buy us more time, but at what cost? So that would be what I would like to focus on. And planning for our future, I think that we don't, as Ms. Iaquinto alluded to earlier, we are suffering from a lack of planning in the past. And those chickens have come home to roost now. And we need to plan now for the future so that future generations have it easier because of the actions that we take today. So those are just my further thoughts.
Mr. Cohen?
No, just, excuse me. My thought process was a workshop to deal with the crisis at hand in terms of time is of the essence to examine what opportunities we have to address this because the alarm bells are going off around us and they've been going off for some time. This is not, we do feel like we're going from 0 to 50, but obviously towns around us have been having overrides for many months now. So it's not like we weren't aware around us that we were traveling closer and closer to this question with the services that we know we have to provide. But my workshop idea is to focus on the task at hand. The things that you bring up about economic development, absolutely. I think that, in the future, we have to look at our zoning and promote economic development that is a zoning change from highway commercial to light industrial that promotes small businesses that hire people and give them a livable wage and the benefits and the services are low to the town. So when we talk about economic development, we should be talking about zoning and what we want to promote. But that is something that would have an effect, years down the road. I think the crisis at hand requires a workshop dedicated to kind of focusing our attention on what can we do right now to address this issue.
I would say that some discussion here tonight about Proposition 2.5. I think it's important to highlight that Prop 2.5 was put in place for the protection of the taxpayer. Prior to Proposition 2.5, communities were able to just raise what they needed to pay the bills. There's not a household in America, a working household in America, that can do that. We can't create additional money if we don't raise taxes. So we need to be mindful that the only option if we don't tighten the belt is an override. And perhaps, economic development is an important component of this. We've all campaigned on that. We've all expressed tonight and in other meetings that economic development is a priority for us. We have a whole meeting dedicated to it with the Planning Board and the Economic Development Foundation. We'll definitely work through some of those issues together. But we're not going to get enough economic development to offset this problem in the next year. We have to be really cautious about how we proceed. The immediate problem is either an override or a tighten in the belt. And so we have to figure out I think we have to figure out how we can tighten the belt, because this community is not going to accept an override. There are communities that have accepted overrides in Massachusetts recently, but the overwhelming majority of them have rejected them. And that puts the town staff in a difficult position. So I think we need to find more creative ways to meet the needs that we have now. Thank you, Mr. Brindisi. Select board discussion, new business, Mr. Canty.
So apropos of our most recent topic of discussion, we are just about halfway through the legislative session for our state delegation. So I think it would be a good opportunity to invite our state delegation in to talk about what they have been working on for the town in the first half of the session, what they're going to continue to work on in the next half, as well as potentially, because of the way that our town meeting is set up, we often don't find out much details about state aid until after town meeting has happened and after budgetary decisions have been made. And since our state delegation has a better sense of what's going on up at Beacon Hill than we do sitting here at 26 Court Street, I think it would be a good opportunity to have State Senator Fernandez and State Representatives Lenatra and Badger come in and talk about those things, potentially give us an insight into state aid and talk about what, if any, other monies there's available for Plymouth that could help us in the near term with some of our budgetary issues and other needs that the community has. I know that they work very hard up there every day to try and advance the needs of the community. But obviously, I think it's important that the members of the public that are hearing this conversation at the local level also have that greater context and opportunity to hear from them about some of the solutions. We will not be getting help, I don't think, from our federal counterparts, but we may be able to get some relief from Beacon Hill, and it would be important to have them here to talk about that. So I would ask that we invite the state delegation to come in to cover those topics and anything else of interest that they'd like to put forward on an upcoming agenda.
Mr. Cohen?
Under new business, the town of Plymouth has a town bell, and the town bell has a long history, and it resides in Town Square on top of the National Memorial Meeting House in the Belfry. Years ago, we used to have a tradition where we rang the bell at New Year's, and I'm proposing, if it's okay with the board, that we ring the bell at New Year's Eve on welcoming in the year 2026, which is obviously the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. You have the town bell in America's hometown. I think it would be fitting if when we ring the bell at midnight, welcoming in the new year, that we ring it 76 times. And I just, welcoming in the new year, I have people willing to help pull the rope 76 times. So it's something that I thought would be a nice thing, that we revisit this tradition of ringing our town bell. We're the oldest town in North America that has the tradition of a bell, and I think it would be a fitting use of the bell, again, welcoming in the year 2026. Obviously, in 1776, 250 years ago, the United States of America was born, and many can trace the origins of the United States back to the town of Plymouth. So I think it would be a fitting thing to do if the board is so inclined.
I think you should do it 1,776 times. Are there any objections from the board?
How long would that take? I mean, are you going to keep people up for?
So, we have rung the bell for a duration I think back in 2021 and 22, we were ringing for lost lives during COVID. It was
Right,
in the
right.
hundreds, 100 and so. So, striking it every couple of minutes, it should take a few minutes, but it should be done in a timely manner. So.
So you'd strike it every couple of minutes,
No,
76 times?
No, within the minute.
Oh.
So you'd have it strike, you could do up to 4 strikes a minute, every 15 seconds.
Okay, so it's like,
Yeah.
it's going to take 17 minutes?
Yeah, that's what we were doing last time. We did
Okay.
about 17 minutes.
Okay.
Ms. Iaquinto?
So I'm glad it's not 1,776 times. But when Mr. Cohen first brought this up to me the other day, I thought it was a fun and interesting idea, but this would happen tomorrow night, right?
Correct.
So how would we warn people? Because I know that if I
Well,
was
the
in
bell
the
does-
neighborhood and the bell started ringing and didn't stop 17 minutes,
So the bell does ring
I
at
might be a
midnight.
little worried.
Yeah, it
I'd
is
call the
ringing.
town manager right away.
It actually rings now. It's actually uniquely ringing not on the hour, every hour. It's called the curfew bell. And it rings at midnight. It rings at 9 o'clock in the morning. It rings at 9 o'clock at night, reminding people that it was the curfew, that it was time now to put out the lights and go to bed. So our bell is ringing in a tradition that it always has run, but it does ring at midnight, and this wouldn't be startling to the local and businesses in the area that will be celebrating New Year's Eve.
I think it's also the downtown area, which will be lively anyways,
Right.
with activity, so I'm not sure that it's a huge deal. Mr. Quintel, do you have something?
I'm not positive, but is there a hand up there?
Yeah, that's Mr. DiNardo. Does the board, do you want to hear from him?
Yeah, I do.
Mr. DiNardo, we see your hand up. Please go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Hi, this is Al Gennaro, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 17. I'll be brief. First of all, Happy New Year. I wish there was better news with the town budget. Just so the public knows, I call it the reserve levy. It was about 4 or 5 years ago. We had $7 million worth of reserve levy. So in order to balance the budget the last 3 fiscal years, we have been quietly taking a couple $1 million to deplete that down. I was bothered by it because really we've had a relatively good economy nationwide. We're not in a depression or a recession. So in my book, I was kind of startled by that. Obviously now we're down to 300,000 with the latest revelation. So, the levy is the overall value of the town that the town could tax. And Mr. Canty said we could only tax 2.5%. But it was the citizens in the early 1980s that, if you read about Prop 2.5, that felt that Massachusetts taxes were out of control. I have a lot of people in Red Brook that are not from Massachusetts. And it forced Massachusetts had the highest taxes at that time. But clearly Beacon Hill has ignored that because we can see that the state budget has grown the last 4 decades. I know you have the delegation coming in. I did some research a few years ago on unfunded mandates. I think that's a good place to start. That has a major impact on education. I think that'd be a number to see really what are these outside forces doing to this town. About 20 to 25% of the town budget is just pension and medical. So, I really never felt we had a town budget problem. We just had all these outside forces. And of course, they play the games of giving us a grant for a firefighter for 2 years. And then the third year, you're on your own. So in closing, I just hope that, I really think we need to look to the delegation. Many towns on the North Shore, Malden just passed a $500 a year override. Marblehead, And Melrose just passed a $1,300 a year override, just for operations. This isn't for debt exclusion, so that doesn't go away. So that's really all I had to say, and I wish it was in a better tone, but hopefully, I know we'll get through this as we usually do. But thank you and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mr. DiNardo, you as well. We'll come back to the bells. Is anyone opposed to Mr. Cohen's idea about the bells?
Well, could we, given Ms. Iaquinto's concerns, which I do, because people do live there, around there, how would we inform the public that it is a celebratory action as opposed to an alarming occurrence? That
So all I can do is refer to back to 2021 and 22 and 23. It was just an action the board took. We went to Town Square, we rang the bell, 80, 90, 100 or so times,
Right.
once a month. During COVID and during other New Year's Eve celebrations, we rang it. But and we've run it in the memory of different employees that we have lost at different times. So the bell has rung at different times. There isn't any great outreach at the time about notifying the abutters, because you are in Town Square, you're at the cemetery, there is Spring Hill Apartments and a hotel nearby.
there's apartments right on the square, too.
So,
Derek, could we put it out on social media?
oh, there we go.
Very good.
Look at that, social media.
Okay.
Coming to the rescue.
Great. Mr. Cohen, feel free to work with staff on
Okay.
getting that
I will.
going. I'm glad you have volunteers. Other new business?
Yeah, just one other thing, as we start to look at the new year, we're obviously thinking about a workshop to deal with the issues that we talked about tonight. So I hope that finds a spot on the agenda. But I also want to revisit, we had a discussion about e-bikes and a policy associated with e-bikes. At this point, I think that it's important that obviously, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is looking at policies around e-bikes. Whatever those policies may be, we can respond to them when those policies come into focus. But there's nothing really stopping us right now from reaching out to the community, the stakeholders, the interested parties, to have a working group to come back to with suggestions on the policy that we have. One of my reservations about moving that to town meeting was that I wanted to make sure that all the different stakeholders had an opportunity to weigh in. I think that it would be to work in this direction of an e-bike policy. I think it would be a good idea to consider putting together a working group that's serving at the pleasure of this board to take the current suggested bylaw and come back to us with their suggestions. And at that time in the future, we can make a decision whether we go to a fall town meeting consideration. So it's something I'd like the board to consider. Obviously, we haven't put it on the agenda for discussion, but I would like to have that discussion to move forward with the e-bike with the working group. Obviously, we have quite a bit to do between now and the next couple of months, and I'm not suggesting that we continue the direction that we're currently continue. We need to go about the business of the board, but reach out to some of the stakeholders to get their input.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yeah, so thank you so much for your interest in the e-bike policy, Mr. Cohen. So your recommendation reminds me of a conversation I had when I was in consulting, and we had presented the results of some organizational research to the CEO of a major medical device company here in the Boston area, and it wasn't good news. And he looked at us and said, "You obviously spoke to all the wrong people." So I think the suggestion to have a task force now to get input from the stakeholders is akin to saying that to the people that did participate. So we have studied the issue for, 7 months. We had 5 meetings as a select board. We had 3 articles written about it in Plymouth Independent that generated hundreds of responses on social media that I took the time to read through and document and responded to people as needed. We had a public comment period. We had a public hearing for the first time ever. We heard from our police chief. We got police statistics on complaints. We heard from our Health and Human Services commissioner, who gave us the latest information on the medical industry's recommendations on e-bikes. I spoke to two bike shop owners. I rode several e-bikes around town just so I knew what I was talking about. I don't know who is left to talk to right now. In addition to all of that, the people that did respond to public comment, 70% of the respondents either agreed with the recommendations or agreed to the recommendations with the modifications that we made, and we still couldn't get it to where it needed to be. So my recommendation, I was going to bring this up during old business, is that we not give up on this, because I do think it's a public safety issue, it's a public health issue. But the state is supposed to be coming out with its recommendations in March. Let's wait to see what those say. In the meantime, I do think we need to start taking steps to address some of the public safety concerns that were expressed during that long exercise that we just went through. And Mr. Brindisi, I was going to ask if it would be okay if we started working with staff to get some signage put up in some of the areas that were of most concern, such as the rail trail, and there might be some other areas too, if we go back through the documents, the input that we got that might give us some ideas on other places that might benefit from some signage. And the signage would be about basic bike etiquette. It could mirror the signage that's on the canal. And I think that would help. And I also do think that we should focus on doing some education and perhaps an advisory. I'm happy to work with Ms. Kennedy to put something like that together, to put together a plan for education. But I think that if we started, there's nothing else to study. I do think that once we get new information in and we see what the cycling experience is when it starts up again in the spring, I think that would be the time to reconvene and look at something. But to put together a group now to look at something that we just exhausted, I'm not sure is a good use of anybody's time and resources.
So I'm not proposing to, study it further. I'm proposing to reach out to the many people that reached out to me about their concerns about the e-bike bylaw. And I'd like to get their input. I think that, yes, the state is going to be doing something, and they're going to, it's rumored to be somewhere around March that we might be hearing from them. But if fall town meeting is meeting in October of this coming year, and the warrant is opening and closing in August, time is of the essence to appoint a committee, not a committee, a working group serving at the pleasure of the board to examine these amendments that had been suggested that night, that could be looked at by the working group. They could come back to us with their recommendations, and we would have something there that we could recommend if necessary to fall town meeting. I'm not suggesting anything other than being prepared by looking at the bylaw that we were considering and making sure those alterations that had been suggested get public input and be represented to the select board for a possible fall town meeting, which would give us the proper time to sort this out.
Mr. Canty?
So I agree with Ms. Iaquinto on this. I thought that the proposal that was put forth the other week was ready to go before town meeting. I think that seeing what the state, now that we have the time, because that didn't go forward, we might as well see what the state puts together. But we have talked about that issue more than any other issue. And I've even talked about how much we've talked about it a lot, because we've talked about it so much. I just can't, and I think at a certain point, the select board needs to be able to make decisions, and we don't need to put together a task force or a working group or advisory committee to advise us on every little thing. I think that this is something that we should be able to make a decision on for the fall. I think we should have been able to make it the last time, but I think that this is something that we do not need another board or committee to be working on, another task force, another group. This is something we have looked at length, and that we will have the benefit of the state's work that we ourselves can look at going forward. And that would be the direction I would suggest. And if a working group or task force or whatever is proposed to do that work, I would oppose it at that time.
Mr. Cohen has asked for it to go on the agenda, so consistent with the policy that we approved tonight, it will go on the agenda. I will assign a date to it within the next 2 weeks. Other new business? Letters? Old business? All right. Our next meeting is going to be January 6th. There are a number of agenda items that we've already advertised, including ICE policy discussions, fall meeting, spring town meeting article review, as well as the budget that Mr. Brindisi discussed here tonight. Barring any other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Canty makes the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Iaquinto seconds. Discussion? Mr. Cohan?
Yes.
Mr. Quintel?
Yes.
Mr. Canty?
Yes.
Ms. Iaquinto?
Yes.
And myself, yes. We are adjourned. Happy New Year, folks.